Chapter 221. Shui Lu deserved death. The embroidered uniform guards were bound to shock the entire imperial city tonight. It had only been a few days since His Majesty the Emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom passed down the decree to establish the embroidered uniform guard, and the embroidered uniform guard had already killed the city guard army's commander, Shui Lu. The actions of the embroidered uniform guard caused many people in the imperial city to tremble with fear, and practically all these people had grudges with Duan Lingtian. Third Prince's estate. Bang! Within the building at the center of the lake, the expression of Third Prince, who'd just received a report from his servant, went gloomy. He threw the wine cup in his hand to shatter on the ground, causing some of the young geniuses to be unable to restrain themselves from shaking with fright. Everyone, the gathering today is over. We'll gather again another time. Third Prince took a deep breath and spoke to see off his guests. After all the young geniuses present left, Third Prince's eyes flashed with an awe-inspiring coldness. Since I'm already like fire and water with him, then I don't have to hold back. I must destroy his arrogant air, go make preparations. I want to enter the palace and see my imperial father first thing tomorrow. Yes. The servant accepted the orders then left. Duan Lingtian, do you really think that achieving a small meritorious service allows you to act in an unbridled manner? I really want to see how my imperial father will punish you. Third Prince's incomparably cold voice seemed like it came from the depths of hell. Fifth Prince's estate. Within the pergola, the white-browed old man was respectfully reporting to the Fifth Prince about the matter that was spread and gave rise to much discussion in the imperial city. What? Duan Lingtian actually brought along his subordinate embroidered uniform guards and killed Shui Lu. Fifth Prince was startled by this news, then his face sank. He really hesitates for nothing and is unscrupulous. Your Highness, I heard that the one who carried out the deed was one of his subordinate embroidered uniform guards. That embroidered uniform guard ought to be in existence at the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. Slight fear was contained within the white-browed old man's tone. Looks like the Divine Might Marquis is still concerned about the friendship he had with Duan Rufeng all those years ago, and actually went to such great lengths to send a 9th level nascent soul stage martial artist for Duan Lingtian to order about. Fifth Prince's eyes flickered with coldness, and his tone was depressed and low. Your Highness, what should we do now? The white-browed old man asked. The Fifth Prince flicked his sleeve and said, with cold and indifferent voice, HMPH. Now we don't have to do anything. I'll go to the palace to see my imperial father tomorrow. This Duan Lingtian's really too audacious, actually even daring to kill the city guard army's commander. Tomorrow, my imperial father will dismiss him from his post as the commander of the embroidered uniform guard. Your Highness is wise. The white-browed old man nodded. Prime Minister's estate. Ji Yuting sat before the stone table in the front courtyard as he savored the fragrant tea with a tranquil mind. Before long, a hurried figure whistled in and said, in a respectful voice, Lord Prime Minister, the commander of the embroidered uniform guard, Duan Lingtian, took along his subordinate embroidered uniform guards and killed the city guard army commander, Shui Lu. Shui Lu. Ji Yutong brows raised. Just a boorish fellow. However, this Shui Lu's father isn't simple. As he muttered, a trace of a gloomy brilliance flashed within Ji Yuting's eyes. The next day, Duan Lingtian had only just arrived at the embroidered uniform guard's residence when he was summoned into the imperial palace. It was still the same resplendent palace from before, and Duan Lingtian walked in with large strides. He noticed that besides the emperor, who sat on the imperial throne, and Prime Minister Ji Yuting, who stood beside him, there still stood two people nearby. These two people weren't unfamiliar to Duan Lingtian. Third Prince, Fifth Prince. Although he'd guessed that the emperor summoning him was about the matter from yesterday, he never thought that the Third Prince and the Fifth Prince, who were usually in conflict, would actually tacitly unite for the sake of him. Looks like his face was rather outstanding. Your Majesty. Duan Lingtian looked at the emperor and lightly nodded. Presumptuous. Third Prince's and Fifth Prince's faces went gloomy as they berated. Presumptuous. Duan Lingtian looked at the two of them and smiled indifferently. Princes, I wonder how I am presumptuous. Duan Lingtian, you didn't kneel when you saw His Majesty the Emperor. Is this not presumptuous? Third Prince asked, in a deep voice. Not kneeling when you see His Majesty the Emperor is a crime of great disrespect. Duan Lingtian, do you know your crime? The Fifth Prince added insult to injury. Duan Lingtian didn't even pay any attention to what the two said and instead looked at the Emperor. All right, you two brothers, that's enough. The Emperor spoke out. Imperial Father. The third prince and fifth prince were both stupefied, and looked at the emperor with a puzzled expression. The emperor said indifferently, "I've already promised Commander Duan that he's exempt from kneeling when he sees me in the future. You two don't have to make a fuss about nothing." Exempt from kneeling? Third prince's and fifth prince's pupils constricted and they both had astounded expressions. They never imagined that their imperial father would treat Duan Lingtian so generously. However, when they thought about Duan Lingtian's deeds yesterday, their hearts calmed. As far as they were concerned, just the incident yesterday was sufficient to cause Duan Lingtian to fall from heaven into hell and forever be unable to rise again. "All right, now that Commander Duan is here, what do you two have to say?" The emperor looked at third prince and fifth prince and asked indifferently. "Imperial father, this Duan Lingtian obtained your favor and was even conferred as the commander of the embroidered uniform guard by you. He should make an example of himself and serve my imperial family. But unexpectedly, at dawn yesterday, he actually lost all judgment to the point that he forced entry into the city guard army's campsite and killed Commander Shui Lu." Third prince had a face full of anger. "Imperial father, Commander Shui Lu was a pillar of our kingdom, however, he died in the hands of this ignorant kid. I hope Imperial father will uphold justice for Commander Shui Lu." "Yes, Imperial father. Duan Lingtian killing Commander Shui Lu is a heinous crime. I hope that Imperial father will dismiss him from his post as commander of the embroidered uniform guard and heavily punish him as a warning against others." The fifth prince joined in and pleaded as well. From beginning till the end, Duan Lingtian had a carefree expression, as if he didn't care about what was happening before him. And in actuality, Duan Lingtian indeed didn't care about what was happening, as to him, this was all just a farce. "Commander Duan, what's this about?" The emperor's gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian understood the moment he saw the emperor's calm gaze that the emperor absolutely didn't just find out about the matter and probably had found out last night. Now he was just putting on an act before the third and fifth princes. The emperor's gaze seemed to have a trace of meaning mixed within. Duan Lingtian saw through what this trace of meaning meant, and it was that the emperor hoped that Duan Lingtian would give him a way to extricate himself. Although for the sake of him being the only one capable of refining the poison removal pill, it would be impossible for the emperor to punish him, but the emperor was the emperor after all, and he possessed supreme dignity. Now the emperor required a way to extricate himself. "Your Majesty." Duan Lingtian gave the emperor a gaze that said he understood, then slowly said, "The differences between me and Shui Lu all arose because of his son, Shui Lang. I presume your Majesty has heard of it. However, your Majesty doesn't know that nearly 5 months ago, during the journey I followed the Crimson Worm army to leave the imperial city and head to the northwest border, someone wished to kill me. You can imagine how if that person was successful, then I'd be unable to cooperate with the border army and the Crimson Worm army to capture the southern barbaric city and spread the might of my Crimson Sky Kingdom." Duan Lingtian said, with a clear voice. "There was still such an incident." The emperor's face sank. "Do you know who it was?" Duan Lingtian nodded. "This is exactly what I want to say next. That person was a member of the City Guard Army, who was acting under the orders of the City Guard Army commander, Shui Lu, to sneak into the Crimson Worm army with a desire to kill me on the way, and take revenge for his son." "Nonsense. Bullshit." Third prince and fifth prince spoke at almost the same instant. However, under the dignified gaze of the emperor, they both shut their mouths. "Continue." The emperor looked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian nodded. "Your Majesty, I know that the two princes suspect that what I speak of isn't true, but this matter is something Commander Shui Lu admitted himself yesterday at the City Guard Army campsite. I originally didn't intend to do anything to him, and only wanted him to pay a small compensation. This isn't too much, right? However, that Shui Lu didn't appreciate my kindness, he threatened to kill me and the embroidered uniform guards under my command. All this is something the thousands of soldiers within the City Guard Army campsite heard with their own ears. If the two princes don't believe it, feel free to investigate." As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he looked at the third prince and fifth prince. Their faces instantly sank. Duan Lingtian continued, "In the end, for the sake of self-preservation, I could only order the embroidered uniform guards under my command to kill Shui Lu before he killed me, otherwise the one that died would have been me and my embroidered uniform guards. I hope your Majesty understands." The emperor nodded. "Imperial father." Right at this moment, a clear and melodious voice that was pleasing to the ear sounded, then a drop-dead gorgeous figure walked swiftly over under the escort of palace maids. This was a young girl with a peerless appearance that caused one to be unable to restrain oneself from being lost within her beauty with just a glance. Princess Bai Yao. Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised, as he'd never thought that he would meet Princess Bai Yao here. Bai Yao, you seem to be in such a hurry. Do you have some urgent matter? The emperor's face revealed a trace of amiableness when he saw Bai Yao. This was something that wasn't present when he faced third prince and fifth prince, and it was sufficient to show how much he doted upon this daughter of his. Imperial father, I heard you're going to punish Commander Duan, right? Imperial father, can you not punish Commander Duan? He wouldn't kill another without a reason. Princess Bai Yao was slightly short of breath as she spoke. Instantly, everyone present was stunned, as no one had expected that Princess Bai Yao coming over in such a hurry was actually to plead on behalf of Duan Lingtian. Third prince and fifth prince's expression was incomparably gloomy. As for the emperor, he glanced at Duan Lingtian deeply. As he was an experienced person, he was able to discern that his daughter ought to have secretly fallen for this youth of similar age. Otherwise, she wouldn't have forcefully entered the throne room. Bai Yao, who said that Imperial father is going to punish Commander Duan? The emperor shook his head with a smile. Commander Duan's already explained earlier, he isn't in the wrong in this matter, it's the fault of the city guard army commander, Shui Lu. Shui Lu deserved death. Third prince and fifth prince knew that they'd wasted their time today when they heard what the emperor said. Princess Bai Yao's beautiful face flushed bright red when she heard what the emperor said, as she never thought that the outcome of her rushing over here would be like this. So it turned out that even if she didn't come, Duan Lingtian would have been fine. For a moment, she was embarrassed to the point that she felt too ashamed to show her face. You too. The emperor's gaze quickly moved on to the third prince and fifth prince, and he said coldly, next time, don't disturb me before you've investigated the matter clearly. 221 Chapter 222, Pei San. Yes. Third prince and fifth prince hurriedly lowered their heads and replied. At the instant they lowered their heads, their eyes flickered with dense killing intent. This killing intent was naturally directed at Duan Lingtian. Third prince looked at the emperor and said respectfully, Imperial father, then I'll excuse myself. I'll excuse myself as well. Fifth prince left as well. The emperor's gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian for a moment, then it descended onto Princess Bai Yao for a moment, constantly moving between the two. Duan Lingtian was still fine and was able to stand there unfazed with a carefree expression, however, Princess Bai Yao's face was red with embarrassment. Imperial father, what are you looking at? Ha 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 ha, the emperor laughed heartily for a while before stopping. You two know each other. Princess Bai Yao nodded embarrassedly. The emperor looked at Duan Lingtian and lightly smiled. Commander Duan, you seldom come to the palace. Since you're acquainted with Bai Yao, then accompany her to walk around. Yes, your majesty, Duan Lingtian replied, before leaving the throne room with Princess Bai Yao. The palace maids behind Princess Bai Yao followed then as well. And Prime Minister Jiu Ting, who had been standing beside the emperor and hadn't spoken all the time, now had a slightly sunken face, and his eyes flickered with a dense, fierce light. He seemed like a fierce and malicious poisonous snake that was selecting its prey to swallow. Compared to before, Princess Bai Yao was slightly awkward now. This was because she never thought that this youth she'd fallen for actually had such great ability. Now that she was walking with the youth that was always in her dreams, she was instead embarrassed to the point that she didn't know what to say. Duan Lingtian felt the atmosphere to be slightly weird as well. After accompanying Princess Bai Yao to walk for some time, Duan Lingtian spoke first. Princess, I still have matters to attend to. I'll be taking my leave first. Okay. Princess Bai Yao lightly nodded, then she watched from afar as Duan Lingtian left. Only then did she heave a sigh. After Duan Lingtian left the imperial palace, he shook his head and sighed. Even he didn't know what sort of feelings he had towards Princess Bai Yao. However, he could be sure about one thing. Princess Bai Yao forcefully charging into the throne room to plead on behalf had made him feel slightly moved in his heart. Although she wasn't of any help, this intention of hers was extremely hard to come by. Huu, Duan Lingtian let out a breath of air, then he returned to that spacious courtyard house that was the embroidered uniform guard's residence. Commander, the embroidered spring sabers you gave us, are they all grade 8 spirit weapons? Duan Lingtian had only just passed through the gate when he noticed Zhang Qian coming to greet him with an astonished expression. The gazes of the other 11 descended onto Duan Lingtian as well. They never imagined that Duan Lingtian would be so extravagant. All of you only noticed now. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly. Commander, you didn't have to go to such an expense to request a grade 8 weapons craftsman to refine all these spirit weapons. You spent quite a lot, right? Zhao Gang said as well. It's just some small toys I casually refined myself, I only spent some money on materials. Duan Lingtian casually said. Instantly, all the 12 of them, including the half-step void stage old man, were dumbstruck. Their commander was a grade 8 weapons craftsman. According to their knowledge, this commander seemed to only be 19 in another 1 or 2 months. An 18-year-old grade 8 weapons craftsman, what sort of concept was that? Commander, if my feeling isn't wrong, these grade 8 spirit weapons are all capable of providing an entire 20% amplification in strength, and are much better compared to spirit weapons refined by ordinary grade 8 weapons craftsmen. The old man that killed Commander Shuilu yesterday couldn't refrain from saying. Old Hong, you have a good eye. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as he nodded. This old man was precisely one of the 2 half-step void stage powerhouses that the senior Marquis of the Divine Might Marquis estate sent to him. Now, the others were even more shocked when they heard the conversation between Duan Lingtian and Old Hong. They all withdrew their embroidered spring sabers and seriously examined them for some time, and the result was they noticed that it was exactly as Old Hong said, they were capable of increasing an entire 20% of strength. They couldn't help but be moved. After all, an ordinary grade 8 spirit weapon would at most provide an amplification close to 20% of strength, and one that was capable of providing a 19% amplification can be considered to be top quality. The embroidered spring sabers in their hands would absolutely be capable of being considered as extremities amongst top quality grade 8 spirit weapons. For a moment, a sense of reverence appeared within their gazes as they looked at Duan Lingtian. An 18-year-old origin core martial artist and grade 8 weapons craftsman. But it was unknown what expressions they would have if they knew that Duan Lingtian was also a grade 8 alchemist. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian looked at Zhang Qian. Zhang Qian, you and Zhao Gang go to all the large medicine stores within the Imperial City and search for these few types of medicinal materials. Duan Lingtian withdrew a brush and paper, and wrote down a few types of medicinal materials and then passed the paper to Zhang Qian. Mainly search their accounts from 3 years ago, and see if they remember who they'd sold those medicinal materials to. These few medicinal materials were all the main medicinal materials for the poison that the Emperor was infected with, and they were rarely used by anyone. Duan Lingtian's goal was to find out who was the one that poisoned the Emperor. Yes, Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang received their orders and left the Imperial Palace, outside a quiet and remote pavilion. Prime Minister Gu. A hollow voice seemed to echo out from all directions. The voice was gloomy and without the slightest shred of emotion. A black-clothed old man soundlessly appeared. Old Shui. Ji Yuting looked at the old man and lightly nodded. Prime Minister Ji, is there something you came looking for me for? The black-clothed old man had a pair of muddy eyes, and his entire person seemed to reveal a ghastly sense. Coupled with his gaunt body, he seemed as if he would fall from being blown by the wind. However, Ji Yuting instead knew that this old man's strength was extremely terrifying. At least not inferior to his. Ji Yuting sighed as he slowly said, Old Shui, you have my condolences. Prime Minister Ji, what do you mean by this? The ghastly aura on the old man seemed to become slightly deeper when he heard what Ji Yuting said. Old Shui, maybe you still don't know. Your grandson, Shui Lang's, Dantian was crippled by another, and he lost his entire cultivation. Ji Yuting's eyes flickered as he said this. What? The black-clothed old man's muddy eyes instantly flickered with a dense, bright light, and a terrifying killing intent enveloped Ji Yuting. Prime Minister Ji, is what you're saying true? Yes. Ji Yuting nodded. Who did it? Did my son take revenge for Lang? The black-clothed old man's mood was slightly agitated. Old Shui, your son is dead. Ji Yuting laughed bitterly. The black-clothed old man didn't exclaim this time, but his gaunt body instead lightly trembled, and his voice was incomparably icy cold, as if it came from the depths of hell. Prime Minister Ji, do you know who did it? Old Shui, your son was precisely trying to take revenge for your grandson, however, in the end he wasn't able to take revenge, and he himself was killed in retaliation. The person that crippled your grandson and killed your son is precisely the same person. Ji Yuting slowly said. Who is it? The black-clothed old man raised his eyebrows and stared in anger, he was furious to the utmost limit. The embroidered uniform guard commander, Duan Lingtian. Gu Ting slowly said, "Old Shui, you should return and see your grandson. I'm truly worried that since your son is dead, that Duan Lingtian will be ruthless to your grandson. He dares." The black-clothed old man shouted in a low voice, and mixed within his tone was a breathtaking icy coldness. Whoosh! Instantly, the black-clothed old man's figure trembled, and he vanished without a trace. Duan Lingtian, I really want to see how you withstand this madman Shui's rage. The corners of Gu Ting's mouth curled into a sneer from his plot being successful. On the main street of the Imperial City inner city, Duan Lingtian spurred his horse to walk in the front, and behind him, 10 embroidered uniform guards followed close behind. The two old men were like two guardian deities, closely protecting Duan Lingtian's sides. Everywhere the 11 passed, all the passers-by would move to the side in avoidance. It's the embroidered uniform guard. He's the embroidered uniform guard's commander, Duan Lingtian. Oh my god, I even thought that the rumors were exaggerated. I never imagined Duan Lingtian was really only a youth. The passers-by that crowded around to watch discussed in whispers amongst themselves. Duan Lingtian naturally heard all these discussions, but he only shook his head and smiled and didn't take it to heart. There was no lack of similar discussions all the way, and he'd already become accustomed to it. Go! Right at this moment, a luxurious carriage approached straight at them with an extremely swift speed. Duan Lingtian frowned. Move! The carriage driver was obviously extremely domineering, and he yelled as he swung the horse whip in his hand. The carriage driver's eyes obviously had a sense of ridicule mixed within his as he looked at the pedestrians that fled in disorder to both sides of the road. Before long, he noticed Duan Lingtian's group. The carriage driver frowned, then he glanced at the standardized Valador robes that Duan Lingtian's group wore. He was vaguely aware that these people might not be simple, so he panicked in his heart as he hurriedly tightened the reins. Halt! The carriage stopped at a distance not even 3 meters from the horse under Duan Lingtian. Ah Fu, why did you stop? Right at this moment, a man's voice sounded from within the carriage. Third young master, there are a few army lords in front. Let's wait for them to pass first. The carriage driver looked at the youth who wore a Valador robe and was slightly unconfident. What army lords? A slightly impatient voice sounded out from within the carriage. Before long, the carriage's curtain was pulled open, and a young man stuck out his head. However, the young man's pupils couldn't help but constrict from this glance, and a sense of rage and sinister appearance appeared on his face when he saw the youth before him. It's you. Duan Lingtian was slightly stunned by the young man before him suddenly shouting out in surprise at him. Do I know him? Duan Lingtian carefully sized up the young man that stuck his head out from within the carriage, and the memories within his mind flashed by swiftly. In the end, an indistinct figure seemed to appear before his eyes, and it slowly merged with the person before him. 2 years ago, the scene outside Triumph City flashed within Duan Lingtian's mind. At that time, he was hurrying on the road to Triumph City when he encountered a youth and young girl that regarded human lives as something as worthless grass. The youth and young girl both traveled on Fergana horses. That time, he'd intentionally avoided them at the side of the road. But unexpectedly, that young girl actually swung out her horsewhip at him. He's taught the young girl a lesson, and the youth stood up for the young girl and attacked him. In the end, the youth's arm was severed by him. Only after that did Duan Lingtian find out that the youth was Pei San, the third son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor. It's you. Duan Lingtian recalled that the young man before him was precisely the Pei San that he severed an arm off 2 years ago. 222 Chapter 223, Li Qing. No matter what, Duan Lingtian had never thought that he would encounter Pei San again, moreover on the main street of the Imperial City's inner city. Everything in the world was truly inconstant. Thinking back to the time he was in a sorry state after he severed Pei San's arm, Duan Lingtian suddenly felt as if he wasn't even in the same era anymore. He could still remember how he desperately spurred his horse to gallop madly to Triumph City just to escape chase from the powerhouse that followed by Pei San's side. He could imagine how if the powerhouse that followed by Pei San's side was able to catch up to him, the him of that time would have died for sure. Later on, even when he stayed in Triumph City for those few days, he still moved carefully every step of the way, as he was deeply afraid of being uncovered. The Pei San of that time was an extremely large threat to him. Even to the extent that once he was found by Pei San would only need to say a word and his blood would splatter from a 3-foot-long blade, and he would die on the spot. Once, he was filled with fear towards Pei San's identity of being the son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor. However, now, Duan Lingtian suddenly realized that when he encountered Pei San once again, besides being slightly surprised, he didn't feel anything else. Maybe now he stood at a different height. Or maybe it was too long ago. I've finally found you. Pei San gnashed his teeth, then he walked out of the carriage and looked at the youth on horseback with eyes filled with icy cold killing intent. Duan Lingtian looked at Pei San with a calm expression. In the past, he might have been fearful of Pei San. But now, Pei San and he weren't on the same level, even to the extent that so long as he wanted it, he would only need to say a word and it would be sufficient to cause the Swallow Mountain County's county governor's estate that backed Pei San to change ownership. He was confident that so long as he told the emperor would absolutely satisfy his request. Even to the extent that he only needed to give an order and the embroidered uniform guards behind him would attack swiftly to make Pei San's blood splatter from a 3-foot-long blade, killing him on the spot. But he didn't act in such a way, and he didn't even have any thoughts of fussing about it with Pei San. Third young master, what's wrong? Right at this moment, 2 more people walked out in succession from within the carriage and stood behind Pei San. An old man and a young man. The old man was obviously in existence at the nascent soul stage. As for that young man, Li Qing, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice. The young man that presently stood behind Pei San wasn't anyone else but precisely Li Qing, who'd left the Li family years ago. He never imagined that after this Li Qing left the Li family, he'd actually get together with the Swallow Mountain County's county governor's estate's third young master. Everything in the world was truly inconstant. Only when he heard Duan Lingtian's voice did Li Qing look towards Duan Lingtian, and with only a single glance, his face abruptly went grim as he hurriedly said to Pei San, "Third young master, it was precisely this person that crippled your arm that day, it's him. It's him. Blood enmity, do you think I still need you to tell me now?" Pei San slowly turned around and glanced at Li Qing, then a sneer appeared on the corners of his mouth. "So it turns out that Li Qing is your real name. No wonder I was unable to investigate your background throughout these 2 years. Li Qing, you're truly capable, and you truly concealed yourself so well." Third young master, I. Li Qing's gaze was complicated, and a bitter smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. "I made a mistake and was found out in the end. Humph, I'll deal with you later." Pei San's voice was cold and indifferent, and his gaze then descended onto Duan Lingtian. 2 years ago, you crippled my arm. Today, I'll make you repay it with interest." "Oh," Duan Lingtian asked indifferently, "how will you make me repay it with interest?" "I'll take your life." Pei San's voice was filled with hatred and ruthlessness. Presumptuous. The face of the 2 old men in Valador robes beside Duan Lingtian sank, and they shouted out in unison. Pei San frowned. Only now did he realize that the youth before him wasn't alone, and the gaze with which he looked at Duan Lingtian went even colder. "What, you think that I, Pei San, will be unable to touch you just because you have a few helpers?" "Pei San." Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto Pei San, and he said indifferently, "You're the most clear of who provoked the matter outside Triumph City that year. Today, it can considered to be fate that we're able to meet again. I don't want to fuss about the matter from that year with you, so let's call it off right now." It had already been 2 years. Moreover, he didn't suffer a loss that year, so Duan Lingtian didn't want to fuss over it anymore. Now, Pei San wasn't on the same level as him anymore, thus he didn't intend on playing the bully. Just let everything from the past be blown away by the wind. However, this was only Duan Lingtian's wishful thinking. The corners of Pei San's mouth curled into a sneer when he heard what Duan Lingtian said. "You speaking like this, is it because you're afraid? Over these 2 years, there hasn't been a moment that I forgot the scene of you severing my arm. I wish for nothing more than to tear your corpse into thousands of pieces, then burn your bones and scatter your ashes. Only like this will I be able to vent the hatred in my heart. It's too late to regret now. That year, if you had obediently suffered a whip from my little sister Ru, the following events wouldn't have occurred. So, even after you die today, it can only be blamed on you being too arrogant that year. You didn't know who you could or couldn't offend. I, the son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, am an existence that a commoner like you is unable to offend." As he finished speaking, Pei San's voice was filled with arrogance and ruthlessness. Li Qing stood behind Pei San, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile, as he felt that Duan Lingtian would die on the spot today as well. Although he didn't know why Duan Lingtian would appear in the imperial city, as far as he was concerned, Duan Lingtian would undoubtedly die from encountering him, who'd gone berserk. However, the expression of the old man behind Pei San was slightly unnatural. He noticed that after his young master said all this, the passers-by that had stopped to spectate from the sides of the road all had expressions of disdain. Son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor. Calling the embroidered uniform guard's commander, Duan Lingtian, who is currently bathing in the limelight, a commoner. An amusing feeling arose within the hearts of the passers-by present. At this moment, they even forgot to whisper in discussion amongst themselves, as they focused their attention to see the development of the matter. But their gazes when they looked at Pei San had traces of mischievous laughs jumping within. Pei San extended his hand to point at Duan Lingtian, and his gaze was filled with a bloodthirsty killing intent as he shouted fiercely, "Grandpa, why, I want him dead." However, Pei San quickly noticed that the old man behind him remained unmoved, as if he hadn't heard what Pei San had said. "Grandpa, why?" Pei San was stupefied, and he turned around to look at the old man behind him. Only Yo noticed that the old man's gaze was staring fixedly at the waist of the youth that sat atop the tall horse. And his gaze followed on to descend there. This glance nearly frightened him out of his wits. Embroidered uniform guard. He had arrived at the imperial city yesterday and had stayed the night at the outer city. In the outer city's restaurant, he'd heard of the rumors about the embroidered uniform guard and knew that the embroidered uniform guard was the most terrifying and the most arrogant and domineering organization within the imperial city currently. Allegedly, the commander of the embroidered uniform guard, Duan Lingtian, was only 18 this year, but he had already deeply received the favor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor and became the spokesman of the emperor. Even though he was far away at the Swallow Mountain County, he'd heard of Duan Lingtian, and knew that he was the #1 genius of Paladin Academy. He came to the Imperial City precisely because he intended to report to Paladin Academy. In his opinion, once he arrived at Paladin Academy, he might have a chance to meet this figure of legend. When he'd first heard of Duan Lingtian, a few months ago, he had a trace of yearning within his heart, as he was curious about what sort of figure that Duan Lingtian was. When he arrived in the Imperial City and found out about Duan Lingtian's military exploits in the Northwest Borders battlefield, admiration even arose from the depths of his heart. When he heard that Duan Lingtian became the commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, brought over 10+ embroidered uniform guards, and directly forced entry into the City Guard Army's campsite to kill the City Guard Army's commander, Shui Lu, he felt his blood boil. For that moment on, he practically took Duan Lingtian as his idol. However, now, you're that commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, Duan Lingtian. Pei San took a deep breath, and he looked at Duan Lingtian while harboring the last trace of hope in his heart. At this moment, he hoped so dearly that Duan Lingtian would deny it. "What do you think?" Duan Lingtian looked at Pei San with a calm expression as he responded rhetorically. This son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governors finally recognized Commander Duan. What a joke, actually threatening to tear Commander Duan's corpse into 1,000 pieces and then burn his bones and scatter his ashes. Humph, he's just the Swallow Mountain County's county governor's son. Even if the Swallow Mountain County's county governor personally came here today, he would still not dare be so presumptuous before Commander Duan. This Pei San is really courting death. This person had an expression of having gone through much bitterness and was thirsting for revenge earlier. But now he instead has a face full of terror and disbelief. That's normal, he's recognized Commander Duan now, after all. If he still dared to act like how he was earlier, then he'd really be an utter moron. The crowd of people that stood at the roadside to spectate discussed animatedly amongst themselves and didn't intentionally suppress their voices. Duan, Commander Duan. Pei San's body trembled and his face went ghastly pale. He was dumbstruck. He'd completely confirmed it. Never would he have imagined that the person he had a pressing need to kill these past 2 years was actually this, Duan Lingtian. The hatred within his heart completely crumbled at this moment, and all that was left was a sense of loss and helplessness. Exactly as the surrounding crowd had said, with Duan Lingtian's current status and influence, not to mention him, even his father, the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, would have to treat Duan Lingtian with respect. A trace of bitterness appeared on the face of the old man behind Pei San. This youth was the violet-clothed youth he'd chased into Triumph City that year. The youth had already climbed to such a height within a mere 2 years' time. A height that even he could only look up to. No, impossible, impossible. Li Qing stood behind Pei San and shook his head unceasingly, as he wasn't willing to believe all this was true. The embroidered uniform guards commander Duan Lingtian. He's heard of the Duan Lingtian whose name was spread and gave rise to much discussion within the Crimson Sky Kingdom these past few months. But he never linked the Duan Lingtian of rumor to his sworn enemy, Duan Lingtian. As far as he was concerned, his sworn enemy, Duan Lingtian, was only a disciple with another surname from a branch family under Aurora City's Li clan. Whereas the peerless genius, Duan Lingtian, from the rumors was instead a direct descendant of the Imperial City's Duan clan. In the past, he thought the two only possessed the same name. After all, the Crimson Sky Kingdom was so huge, and thus it wasn't strange for people with the same name to appear. 223 Chapter 224, Half-Step Void Stage Shui Yun. At any rate, Li Qing had never imagined that the Duan Lingtian, whose name was spread and gave rise to much discussion in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, and whose name now shook the entire Imperial City, was actually the Duan Lingtian he wished for nothing more than to kill and rejoice after he'd done the deed. The disciple with another surname from the branch family under the Aurora City Li clan and the Imperial City Duan clan's direct descendant disciple. They were actually the same person. Li Qing felt that this was absolutely the gods playing a joke on him, but when he tried to pinch his thigh, the pain that came from this thigh instead told him that all this was real. How can this be possible? It can't be, it can't be. Li Qing's face was ghastly pale, as the scene before him caused all his hopes to be blasted to pieces. He planned to rely on the Swallow Mountain County's county governor's estate to break through to the origin core stage, then return to the Li clan and kill Duan Lingtian in revenge for his grandfather. But now, the thoughts that he'd persisted on for 2 years had instantly crumbled. Moreover, not to mention Duan Lingtian, the fact that was the commander of the embroidered uniform guard currently, even if he wasn't, Duan Lingtian was still in existence at the origin core stage, and the publicly acknowledged #1 genius of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's younger generation. He was far from being capable of comparing with Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian sat atop his horse, and his calm gaze flashed past Li Qing and Pei San. When he saw their current expressions, he didn't even have the slightest bit of thought to make a fuss about the matter with them. HMPH. Duan Lingtian's cold and indifferent gaze descended onto the carriage driver. Remember to slow down when you're driving within the Imperial City in the future. Yes, yes, the carriage driver nodded like a chick pecking on grain and didn't dare hesitate in the slightest. As he now knew the youth's identity and knew in his heart that if Duan Lingtian wanted to kill him, it would be no different than stomping an ant to death. Let's go. Duan Lingtian spurred on his horse to move forward with the 10 embroidered uniform guards behind him. Only after Duan Lingtian's group disappeared at the end of the street did Pei San and the old man behind him recover from the shock. Blood enmity. No, I ought to call you Li Qing now. Pei San's gaze descended onto Li Qing, and a trace of icy coldness was faintly mixed within. As far as he was concerned, the reason why Duan Lingtian had now slowly gotten further and further from him, even causing him to lose the hope of getting revenge, all of this was because of Li Qing. If it wasn't for Li Qing intentionally being mysterious that time, it would have been impossible for Duan Lingtian to grow to this extent. Li Qing seemed as if he was jolted awake from a dream when he heard what Pei San said, and he instantly knelt on the ground. Third young master, spare me, spare me. Grandpa, why? Pei San's voice revealed gloominess. Not good. Li Qing's heart jerked, and he hurriedly stood up, desiring to flee. However, he was only a martial artist that hadn't even stepped into the origin core stage. How could he possibly flee from the hands of a nascent soul martial artist? His skull was shattered by the old man with a palm strike in the blink of an eye, dead. Pei San took a deep breath after seeing Li Qing being killed and then returned into his carriage. He understood that even if he couldn't let it go, some enmity must have been buried deep within his heart. The current Duan Lingtian was already someone that he couldn't deal with, and if he were to be impervious to reason, he would only be courting death. And it might even possibly implicate his father, the Swallow Mountain County's county governor. Duan Lingtian was leading the group of embroidered uniform guards on the main street when his vigilant spiritual force suddenly noticed that something was off. In the shadows, a pair of gloomy eyes were staring at him. Moreover, this person's cultivation wasn't weak, he was even skilled at concealment. If it wasn't for Duan Lingtian's heart being calm as water now, he might not have been able to notice. This is a powerhouse. Vigilance arose within Duan Lingtian's heart, as relying on his spiritual force that was comparable to a nascent soul martial artist's, he was able to sense how terrifying the person was. The person was extremely likely to be a half-step void stage powerhouse. Let's return. Duan Lingtian didn't become panic-stricken and called out to the 10 embroidered uniform guard behind him, then he turned his horse around to head to the embroidered uniform guard's residence. On the way, Duan Lingtian conversed with the 2 old men beside him in a low voice. Old Hong, Old Chin. Don't panic no matter what I say next. Duan Lingtian first gave the 2 old men a warning to stabilize them, then he spoke of what he'd noticed and asked the 2 old men to take precautions. The 2 old men nodded in understanding. Before long, Duan Lingtian's group returned to the embroidered uniform guard's residence, and under Duan Lingtian's orders, the main gate of the spacious and large courtyard house was closed. And at almost the exact same time that Duan Lingtian's group walked in, a figure silently leapt over the surrounding walls to lightly descend into the courtyard. Instantly, the embroidered uniform guard that was right at the back noticed the old man. Duan Lingtian wasn't surprised as he slowly turned around to look at the old man. The old man wore black clothes, a dense killing intent was revealed from between his brows, and his fierce gaze had precisely descended onto Duan Lingtian. As expected, I'm his target. Duan Lingtian thought inwardly, as he knew that this person was the one that was watching him from the shadows earlier. However, he was slightly curious, who the heck was this old man? When this old man looked at him, it was as if the old man had seen a mortal enemy. Duan Lingtian was sure that he didn't know this old man and had never once seen him before. You ought to be the embroidered uniform guard's Duan Lingtian, right? The old man's gloomy gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian. Instantly, besides Old Hong and Old Chin, the faces of all the other 8 embroidered uniform guards beside Duan Lingtian went grim, and they moved to protect Duan Lingtian behind them. Exactly, I'm Duan Lingtian. I wonder who you are? Duan Lingtian asked, with a tranquil gaze. Now he could almost be sure that this black-clothed old man was in existence at the half-step voice stage, and the old man's strength was extremely terrifying. Who am I? A trace of icy coldness appearance on the old man's face as he said, in a cold voice, I'm Shui Lu's father. Shui Yun. Instantly, the faces of Old Hong and Old Chin, who stood beside Duan Lingtian, focused as they exclaimed in a low voice. What? You 2 know me? Shui Yun's gaze descended onto Old Chin and Old Hong's figures. Are you 2 members of the Divine Might Marquis estate? Old Hong and Old Chin looked at Shui Yun with tranquil expressions. Shui Yun. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but recall that when he crippled the Dantina of Shui Lang and that city guard commander Shui Lu waited at the Paladin Academy gate for him, the Duan clan's grand elder had once mentioned this name upon arrival. It was precisely Shui Lu's father. Now Duan Lingtian came to a sudden understand. It's no wonder this black-clothed old man would look upon me with such hatred. So it turned out that the enmity between them had long since been planted deeply. Today, my target is Duan Lingtian. I have no intention of making things difficult between me and the Divine Might Marquis. If all of you are sensible, then leave now. Otherwise, even at the hazard of offending the Divine Might Marquis estate, I will still make all of you be buried with Duan Lingtian. Shui Yun's gaze went slightly cold as he said this in a deep voice. What high-sounding sentiments. That would depend if you have the ability. Old Hong and Old Chin took a step forward with gazes that were like swords, and a trace of fury was mixed within their tone. Okay, let me see what ability all of you have. As soon as he finished speaking, the black-clothed old man moved. Instantly, he seemed to have transformed into a bolt of black lightning that flashed straight towards Old Hong and Old Chin at an extremely swift speed. Moreover, above him, 1,500 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. He's a powerhouse who's stepped into the half-step void stage as expected. Duan Lingtian's gaze focused. Even a 9th-level nascent soul stage martial artist exerting his full strength would only possess the strength of 1,200 ancient mammoths. The first level of the void prying stage did possess the strength of 2,000 ancient mammoths. Although this Shui Yun's strength was inferior to a void prying stage martial artist, it far surpassed a 9th-level nascent soul martial artist. Whoosh, whoosh, Old Hong and Old Chin transformed into 2 bolts of lightning as well and moved to greet him in combat. Above Old Hong and Old Chin, there each appeared 1,500 ancient mammoth silhouettes. In terms of strength, anyone among Old Hong or Old Chin weren't inferior to Shui Yun. Moreover, Old Hong and Old Chin had both joined forces now and suppressed Shui Yun within a short moment. The 2 of them worked together perfectly. You two are the Divine Marquis Estate's Old Tiger and Old Crane. Shui Yun's face went gloomy when he guessed the identity of the two people that he was up against. Old Tiger and Old Crane. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be stupefied. Old Hong and Old Qin still had such nicknames. However, he discerned that when Old Hong attacked, it was indeed like a ferocious tiger, whereas when Old Qin attacked, it was like a graceful crane. Old Hong was adept in attacking, and he firmly suppressed Shui Yun. Old Qin was adept in movement techniques, and he caused Shui Yun to have nowhere to evade. I never imagined that the Divine Might Marquis Estate would go to such lengths. Actually sending you two Old Tiger and Old Crane to follow this little bastard. Shui Yun's body moved to dodge to the side and his face sank. Since you two Old Tiger and Old Crane are here today, then I'll give you two face. I'll come take this little bastard's life next time. As soon as he finished speaking, Shui Yun wanted to flee. Since you've come, then don't think of leaving. Old Qin spoke with a cold and indifferent voice, then the white robe on his body fluttered as he flashed out. He seemed as if he had transformed into a swift, white crane that flew out to block Shui Yun's path in an instant. In terms of speed, Shui Yun had no hope of rivaling Old Qin. Meanwhile, Old Hong caught up in time and blocked Shui Yun's path from the front and back, causing him to have nowhere to flee. Old Tiger and Old Crane, you seem to have forgotten my identity. Shui Yun's face sank, as he knew very well that if it were to continue like this, it would be him who would die for sure. He extended out his hand to withdraw a command token, and atop the command token was the word Spectre engraved on it. I am a Spectre Guard under the command of His Majesty, the Mortal Emperor. If you two kill me, you will surely bring a great disaster upon the Divine Might Marquis Estate. His Majesty the Mortal Emperor. Spectre Guard. A trace of bewilderment appeared on Duan Lingtian's face, as these two terms were so unfamiliar to him. Shui Yun, you think too highly of yourself. Old Hong's voice revealed a trace of disdain. His Majesty the Mortal Emperor would fall out with our Divine Might Marquis Estate for a mere Spectre Guard. What a joke. Shui Yun took a deep breath and said, in a deep voice, he might not have in the past, but don't you forget that your Divine Might Marquis Estate's senior marquis is infected with the poison of the Dark Nether Mink and isn't the void-prying stage powerhouse he was. Then I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. In 3 months at most, the poison of the Dark Nether Mink will be completely expelled from the senior marquis. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be amused when he heard what Shui Yun said. Did this Shui Yun really think that the Divine Might Marquis Estate's power had declined due to the senior marquis being poisoned? 224 Chapter 225, Grade 8 Spirit Cleansing Pill. Little bastard, don't talk nonsense. Even a Grade 6 alchemist can't do nothing against the poison of the Dark Nether Mink. Who are you trying to bluff? Shui Yun's icy cold eyes flashed past Duan Lingtian as he sneered. As far as he was concerned, Duan Lingtian was only an ignorant youth. Duan Lingtian didn't bother wasting his time on Shui Yun and said indifferently, Old Hong, Old Qin. You two ought to still remember what the senior marquis said to the two of you before you two left the Divine Might Marquis Estate with me, right? I don't care if he's a Spectre Guard, I want him dead, now. Duan Lingtian spoke in a carefree manner, but within his voice, a dense killing intent was revealed. A half-step void stage powerhouse was too big of a threat to him. Moreover, the enmity between him and this half-step void stage powerhouse could be said to be absolutely irreconcilable. If Shui Yun didn't die, Duan Lingtian's heart wouldn't be at peace. Yes, Commander. Old Hong and Old Qin nodded and directly attacked with full force. HMPH. Shui Yu's face went grim, then a 3-foot-long blade appeared in his hand as soon as he raised it. Origin energy exploded out, causing the 3-foot-long blade to emit a burst of sword cries, and the number of ancient mammoth silhouettes above Shui Yun instantly rose to over 1,900. Obviously, this was a Grade 7 spirit weapon. But was it only he who had a Grade 7 spirit weapon? Old Hong and Old Qin respectively withdrew their own Grade 7 spirit weapons, and over 1,900 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above them. The Grade 7 spirit weapon in Old Hong's hand was a spear. The Grade 7 spirit weapon in Old Qin's hand was a bone fan. Whoosh! Shui Yun attacked. The sword in his hand seemed to transform into a bolt of lightning as it tore through the sky and caused a piercing, whistling sound to echo out as it flashed straight for Old Qin. Perhaps as far as he was concerned, only by injuring Old Qin would he have any hope of escaping. Old Qin didn't dodge and raised his hand. The bone fan in his hand started revolving faster and faster, emitting ear-piercing howls of wind that caused the surrounding air to stagnate. Origin energy exploded out from the bone fan and actually revolved as it flashed out, aiming straight for Shui Yun's throat. Old Qin was fearless when faced with Shui Yun's sword strike, and he seemed more like he was waiting for Shui Yun's sword to flash over. Whoosh! At the critical moment, the spear in Old Hong's hand trembled and seemed like a flood dragon coming forth from its lair as it tore through the air and stopped Shui Yun's sword strike. No! Shui Yun fiercely shouted, and this would also be the last sound he emitted in this lifetime. His head was directly minced off by the revolving bone fan. Dead, the two halves of Shui Yun's body fell down with a crash, and his blood stained the ground. Meanwhile, Old Qin raised his hand and the bone fan returned to his hand. Then fan actually wasn't stained by the fresh blood in the slightest. So formidable. Duan Lingtian's eyes squinted and he was slightly surprised. At the same time, he was also shocked at Old Hong and Old Qing's teamwork. There was an extremely close tacit understanding between the two, and they trusted each other. Not only did Old Qin not dodge when faced with Shui Yun's sword strike, instead, he used that moment to execute his strongest attack and cause Shui Yun to be unable to defend against it. It was precisely because he trusted Old Hong that he dared do that. Moreover, Old Hong didn't let him down and promptly made a move to stop the sword strike that would have pierced through his chest. Duan Lingtian believed that there probably weren't many half-step void stage powerhouses who could be a match to Old Hong and Old Qin when they joined forces. With Old Hong and Old Qin's strength, they're absolutely the trump card of the Divine Might Marquis estate. I never imagined that Uncle Ni would lend them to me. A trace of warmth arose within Duan Lingtian's heart. Moreover, the other 8 people that the Divine Might Marquis sent to Duan Lingtian didn't reveal any surprise. It was as if they already knew that Old Hong and Old Qin had such strength since a long time ago. Duan Lingtian removed Shui Yun's spatial ring and then picked up the grade 7 spirit sword. Shui Yun's sword was completely jet black and revealed a sense of being simple and ancient. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian's hand trembled and a black bolt of lightning flashed out, then 39 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above Duan Lingtian. 27% amplification, not bad. It's better than the grade 8 spirit weapon I refined now. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart before putting away the fully jet black grade 7 spirit sword. Meanwhile, all of the embroidered uniform guards, including Old Hong and Old Qin, were dumbstruck. When utilizing a grade 7 spirit weapon, this commander of theirs was able to draw upon the energy of heaven and earth and develop 39 ancient mammoth silhouettes. A grade 7 spirit weapon amplified nearly 30% strength. In other words, even without a spirit weapon, he would still be capable of exerting the strength of 30 ancient mammoths. Second level of the Origin Core stage. They never thought that their commander had already broken through to the second level of the Origin Core stage. An 18-year-old second-level Origin Core martial artist. They felt their scalps go numb. After ordering the remaining embroidered uniform guards to bury Shui Yun's corpse, Duan Lingtian called Old Hong and Old Qin, then he walked into the rear courtyard. Duan Lingtian looked at the 2 old men and asked curiously. Old Hong, Old Qin. Earlier, the Spectre Guard and His Majesty the Mortal Emperor that Shui Yun mentioned, what are they exactly? Can you two explain it to me? Of course. Old Hong nodded, and his face went slightly serious. His Majesty the Mortal Emperor is called Mortal Emperor Chu, and he is the younger brother of the current emperor. He shares the same father but not mother with the emperor, and he is of the same generation as your father, Duan Rufeng. That year, within the younger generation of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, his natural talent was only inferior to your father's. Later, Mortal Emperor Chu left the Crimson Sky Kingdom and went to wander around the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. When he returned over 10 years later, his cultivation had stepped into the void-prying stage. At that time, the imperial family's void-prying stage powerhouse of the previous generation had just passed away, so he accepted the important task of protecting the imperial family and became the mortal emperor that was concealed behind the scenes. As for the Spectre Guard, they're the servants at the mortal emperor's side. They total 9 people and are all half-step void stage powerhouses. Old Hong finished explaining in a single breath. Duan Lingtian came to a sudden understanding. Mortal Emperor Chu. The imperial family's void stage powerhouse. He deeply remembered it in his heart. Commander, the Marquis sent someone over to notify you to make a trip to the Divine Might Marquis estate. Right at this moment, a voice sounded out from the front courtyard. Duan Lingtian, who was at the rear courtyard, heard it clearly, and he lightly smiled to the 2 old men. Old Qin, Old Hong, come with me. Before long, Duan Ling Tian once again arrived at the Divine Might Marquis estate. Little Tian, the medicinal materials you wanted have been gathered. The Divine Might Marquis Ni Yuan's face revealed a smile when he saw Duan Ling Tian's arrival. So fast. Duan Ling Tian was slightly surprised, as one of the main medicinal catalysts to refine the Grade 8 Spirit Cleansing Pill was extremely hard to come by, after all. Even in the Imperial City, it was extremely rare. He never expected that his Uncle Ni would already have gathered them all in only a few days. The secrets of the Divine Might Marquis estate were extraordinary as expected. Ni Yuan said, with a smile, one of the medicinal materials among them was extremely rare. However, I just happened to know an alchemist who possessed it and asked him to transfer it to me. Duan Ling Tian nodded and then went to the rear courtyard of the Divine Might Marquis estate with Ni Yuan. In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian withdrew his cauldron and condensed a Grade 8 pill fire, then he started refining the Grade 8 Spirit Cleansing Pill. Duan Ling Tian placed the entire pile of medicinal materials into the cauldron, and after spending 3 hours, slightly out of his expectations, he'd refined 7 Grade 8 Spirit Cleansing Pills. Grandpa Ni, these are 3 Grade 8 Spirit Cleansing Pills, and just like the last time, consume them separately over the course of 3 months. After 3 months, the toxic poison of the dark nether mink within your body will completely vanish. Duan Ling Tian put away 4 Grade 8 Spirit Cleansing Pills and passed the other 3 to the old man. The old man directly consumed one, and his face revealed a carefree smile. Little Tian, it's all thanks to you. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and smiled. Grandpa Ni, don't mention it. If it wasn't for Old Hong and Old Chin that you sent to me, I probably wouldn't have been able to see you again. If those 2 old men hadn't been present, it could be imagined how it would be impossible for Duan Ling Tian to survive Shui Yun. What happened? The old man's face sank when he heard this, and his pair of muddy eyes lit up with a bright light as killing intent shot out from within them. Little Tian, who's so bold to dare to touch you? Ni Yuan had a face full of rage as well. Grandpa Ni, Uncle Ni, don't worry, he's already dead. That person was called Shui Yun, and he seemed to be the father of the City Guard Army's commander, Shui Lu, Duan Ling Tian slowly said. Shui Yun, according to my knowledge, he's a Spectre Guard. However, serves him right that he's dead, because he dared touch you. The old man's face had a casual expression, it was as if he didn't take Shui Yun's death to heart in the slightest. Ni Yuan was almost the same. Uncle Ni, you haven't consumed the Monkey King wine. Duan Ling Tian looked at Ni Yuan and changed the topic. I intend to consume it in another few days. At that time, I'll temporarily leave the Imperial City and find a place to greet the 6-9 lightning tribulation. Ni Yuan lightly smiled. Duan Ling Tian blinked his eyes and said, with a smile, looks like Uncle Ni is extremely confident in stepping into the void prying stage in a short amount of time. Haha, if Uncle Ni steps into the void prying stage, that would still be thanks to your contribution. If I didn't have your Monkey King wine, I don't know how long it would be before I'd be able to break through, even to the extent I might not be able to break through in my lifetime. As he finished speaking, Ni Yuan shook his head and sighed. Although he only needed one more step to reach the void prying stage, many half-step void stage martial artists like him had appeared within the history of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. In the end, more than 90% among those martial artists weren't able to break through to the void prying stage and just died of old age. If one wanted to step into the void prying stage, then one must possess an extraordinary natural talent. Of course, it wasn't impossible for one with ordinary natural talent to break through to the void prying stage. As long as one possessed a void advancement pill, or other external sources of assistance, such as the Monkey King wine, one could still smoothly break through to the void prying stage as well. Uncle Ni, you're exaggerating. Grandpa Ni was able to break through to the void prying stage, how could you possibly have any problems? Duan Ling Tian shook his head and laughed. However, Ni Yuan hadn't spoken yet when the old man spoke first. Little Tian, there's something you don't know. Grandpa Ni was able to break through to the void prying stage because of the void advancement pill as well. If I didn't have the void advancement pill, then it would have probably been difficult for me to break through to the void prying stage in my lifetime. Duan Ling Tian was stunned, as he never thought that the old man had broken through to the void prying stage by relying on the void advancement pill. After leaving the Divine Might Marquis estate, Duan Ling Tian directly returned home and summoned Shang Quan. Young master. Shang Quan respectfully bowed to Duan Ling Tian. Shang Quan, take this. Duan Lingtian didn't waste time and directly withdrew 3 grade 8 spirit cleansing pills from his spatial ring and passed them to Shang Quan. 225 Chapter 226, Duan Lingtian's Plans. Young master, this is. Although Shang Quan could vaguely guess what it was, he still couldn't help himself from asking for confirmation. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as he said, "These are grade 8 spirit cleansing pills, consume them separately over 3 months just like the previous grade 9 spirit cleansing pills. In 3 months, your cultivation will once again recover another 1/3, so you ought to be able to recover to the void prying stage." Shang Quan's breathing became hurried when he heard this. His cultivation could finally recover to the void prying stage. All through this time, he'd always been depressed. He was in existence at the 6th level of the void prying stage, but now because of the origin sealing parasite, his cultivation suffered an extreme restriction. If he could recover to the void prying stage, even if it was only the 1st level of the void prying stage, it still far surpassed his current situation. After all, he had many formidable skills that could only be executed when relying upon the strength of the void prying stage. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian spent half an hour and refined a medicinal pill that looked simple and dull right before Shang Quan's eyes and passed it to him. Besides that, this is the antidote for the past half year. When he gave Shang Quan the grade 9 spirit cleansing pill to consume that day, he'd mixed a special poison within. That poison was something even the spirit cleansing pill was helpless against. Shang Quan had to consume the antidote every half year, or else he would undoubtedly die. This was also a method Duan Lingtian used to control Shang Quan. "Thank you, young master." Shang Quan's gaze shone, and he hurriedly received it before consuming it. After sending Shang Quan off, Duan Lingtian went to the rear courtyard. Only now did he realize that the 2 little girls had both smoothly broken through to the origin core stage. Duan Lingtian returned to his room after accompanying the 2 little girls for a while. After taking out a drop of Monkey King wine and consuming it, Duan Lingtian started cultivating. This time, Duan Lingtian noticed that the medicinal strength of the Monkey King wine was an entire 50% weaker than before. He circulated the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Techniques Worm Python form mental cultivation, and in the end, Duan Lingtian was only barely able to break through to the 2nd level of the origin core stage. Looks like the Monkey King wine and Monkey wine are similar. The effect from first consumption is much better, and the following consumption's effects are halved each time. The second consumption is the half of the first consumption, and the third consumption is the half of the second consumption, so on and so forth. Later on, its effect makes no difference. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart, and he realized that if he stepped into the half-step void stage in the future and wanted to use the Monkey King wine to break through, consuming even more Monkey King wine would only be a waste. However, now that his cultivation had broken through to the 2nd level of the origin core stage, it allowed Duan Lingtian to possess the strength of 41 ancient mammoths. Compared to an ordinary 2nd level origin core martial artist, he possessed an extra strength of 11 ancient mammoths. Compared to an ordinary 3rd level origin core martial artists, he possessed an extra strength of 1 ancient mammoth. That Shui Yun was a specter guard. Duan Lingtian took out Shui Yun's spatial ring and dripped blood to establish ownership, then he looked within and his eyes squinted. There's actually only 1 million or so silver here. This Shui Yun really hasn't been doing well. He was in existence at the half-step void stage and only had this much. As he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian had a face full of dislike. At the gate of the 5th prince's estate, 5th prince looked at Tong Li and said, with a light smile, "Li, cousin will come see you at Fair Sun County when I'm free." "Cousin." Tong Li's eyes were hazy and full of tears, and her face had a sense of unwillingness mixed within. Could it be that we really are helpless against that Duan Lingtian? When she found out of Duan Lingtian's current dominance, Tong Li's heart was filled with unwillingness and resentment. "Li, don't worry. Once cousin conquers the throne, I'll surely capture that Duan Lingtian and send him before you. I'll allow you to deal with him as you please," the 5th prince promised. Tong Li's expression eased up slightly when she heard what he said, and she fiercely nodded with a vicious gaze. "Okay. At that time, I want to slice of his flesh piece by piece and see the last drop of blood bleed out from his body." Subsequently, Tong Li and the old woman beside her left the 5th prince's estate to return to Fair Sun County. 5th prince brought along the white-browed old man and turned to return to the estate after Tong Li's carriage disappeared before his eyes. "Li, don't worry. That old goat doesn't have long to live." On the way back to the estate, the 5th prince muttered to himself. Since killing Shui Yu, Duan Lingtian's life slowly calmed down. The third prince and fifth prince seemed to have vanished from the world. The Prime Minister Ji Yu Ting seemed to have completely quieted down as well. Nowadays, besides occasionally going to the Paladin Academy, Duan Lingtian would normally stay at home and accompany the two little girls and his mother. Occasionally, he would head to the embroidered uniform guard's residence to investigate who it was that poisoned the emperor. As time flowed by, he had more and more clues. Duan Lingtian was confident that it wouldn't be long before he would be able to find out the truth, and find the true culprit. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian had turned 19 and stepped into the ranks of young men, and the immaturity on his face completely vanished. Replacing it, he had sword-shaped eyebrows and starry eyes, and he was handsome and extraordinary with a graceful bearing. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed by. Within a spacious room. Swoosh! The violet-clad young man abruptly opened his eyes, and above him, 51 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. I've finally broken through. Fortunately, the Monkey King wine and Monkey wine didn't clash with each other. Duan Lingtian's face revealed a smile. Since he'd consumed the Monkey King wine for the second time and noticed that the effects weren't great, he didn't waste the Monkey King wine anymore and instead drank the monkey wine. As a result, he noticed that the medicinal strength of the monkey wine didn't weaken due to him having consumed the Monkey King wine. Relying on the medicinal strength of the monkey wine, and coupled with the assistance of the origin strengthening pill, he'd smoothly broken through to the third level of the origin core stage after 3 months. The origin strengthening pill is the upgraded version of the origin increasing pill, and it's also the medicinal pill that origin core martial artists cultivate with because it is able to increase their cultivation speed. Duan Lingtian had refined quite a few of these over the past 3 months. They were all origin strengthening pills of high purity and were far from something the origin strengthening pills sold outside could compare to. The two little girls at home, K'er and Li Fei, both stepped into the second level of the origin core stage in succession after consuming the second drop of Monkey King wine. And their cultivations was something that only Duan Lingtian could firmly surpass within the younger generation of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Of course, all this was only known to Duan Lingtian, and outsiders didn't know of it in the slightest. Otherwise, it was unknown what sort of sensation it would give rise to. Duan Lingtian, whose mood was elated after breaking through, went to Paladin Academy to look for Xiao Yu, Xiao Xuan, and Tianhu to have a meal together. Presently, Xiao Yu and the others had already become accustomed to Duan Lingtian skipping class. It made no difference to the current Duan Lingtian if he skipped class or not, as his current status within the Crimson Sky Kingdom to a certain degree could already be considered as below one but above the rest, as there was no one above him but the Emperor. Perhaps within the Imperial City now, there were people who didn't know who the Prime Minister was, but there was practically no one that didn't know who the commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard was. The commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, Duan Lingtian, the spokesman of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's Emperor. In the eyes of the current Emperor, his status even surpassed Prime Minister Ji Yu Ting's. Right, now that I think of it, it's about time for this year's new students to enroll, right? We ought to be considered grade 2 students now, right? Duan Lingtian asked. Duan Lingtian, you're really slow. The new students already enrolled 2 days ago, and we've been promoted to grade 2 students. Tianhu shook his head and laughed. Even though Duan Lingtian was the commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard now, they hadn't grown apart in the slightest. The friendship between him and Duan Lingtian wouldn't change just because the status of one of them changed. Xiao Xuan looked at Duan Lingtian and asked, Duan Lingtian, do you have any plans? As far as he was concerned, Duan Lingtian was only 19 and had already attained such achievements within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Thus, within the Crimson Sky Kingdom, unless he rose in rebellion to seize the throne, it would be extremely difficult for him to stand at a higher height. In the Crimson Sky Kingdom, he practically stood at the peak. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled. I naturally have a plan. However, everything will have to wait until after I've dealt with an unfinished matter. After I've dealt with the matter, perhaps I'll leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom and head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. According to what Duan Lingtian found out from Shang Quan, some of the sects within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom were situated at places with beautiful scenery, and the origin energy there was abundant, thus being extremely beneficial to one's cultivation. Compared to an ordinary place of cultivation, the speed of cultivation there was much faster. And the speed of cultivation in some places was even double the speed of cultivation at an ordinary place. He could imagine how if he was able to cultivate in those places, combined with the high-purity origin strengthening pills in his possession, his cultivation would surely advance at high speeds. So he had already planned to enter one of the top sects within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom just for the sake of an extremely good place of cultivation. However, no matter whether it was the Paladin Academy he was currently in, or the top sects in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom that he would enter in the future, they were all just stepping stones for him. His aspirations weren't in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, not were his aspirations within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, Xiao Yu, Xiao Xuan, and Tian who all had faces full of yearning when they heard what Duan Ling Tian said. After having a meal with the three of them, Duan Ling Tian left Paladin Academy and went to the embroidered uniform guard's residence with Shang Quan. Shang Quan's cultivation recovering to the void-prying stage was a huge help to him. Commander, our investigation has bore fruit. Duan Ling Tian had only just entered through the gates when he saw Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang coming over to greet him. It has. Duan Ling Tian's gaze shone. Who bought those medicinal materials? Zhang Qian took a few steps forward and closed the gate of the courtyard house, only then did he come to Duan Ling Tian's side and say, in a low voice, Commander, it was someone from the 5th Prince's estate. 5th Prince's estate? Duan Ling Tian's eyes squinted. Are you sure? This isn't a joke. It's said that even a vicious tiger wouldn't eat its cubs, so a vicious tiger ought to not eat its father, right? Commander, we've caught the person that purchased the medicinal materials and confirmed it. Those medicinal materials were something the manager that followed beside the 5th Prince, White Brow One, asked him to buy, Zhao Gang added. Looks like this matter is related to the 5th Prince, I need to make a trip to the palace. Duan Ling Tian nodded and was slightly shocked in his heart. The 5th Prince was really extremely cruel and merciless, even being so ruthless towards his own father. Duan Ling Tian brought Shang Quan along as he hurried into the palace to see the emperor. Commander Duan, is it because you have a lead that you came here in such a hurry? The emperor guessed Duan Ling Tian's reason for coming. Your Majesty, I really don't know how to speak about this matter. Duan Ling Tian had a face full of a bitter smile. Surely he couldn't directly tell the emperor, your son wants to kill you, right? Speak. The emperor's gaze was calm as he slowly spoke. Duan Ling Tian looked at the emperor. According to the clues from my investigation, everything points towards the 5th Prince. 1 TL note. As of done previously, I decided to name him White Brow, which is the translation of his name and how he's usually referred to, white-browed old man. 226 Chapter 227, Mortal Emperor Chu. 5th Prince. The emperor's breathing became hurried when he heard what Duan Ling Tian said. Only after a long time did he take a deep breath and a trace of gloominess flashed within his eyes. Duan Ling Tian was gazing at the emperor, and he could clearly feel the rage within the emperor's heart. He could understand the emperor's current feelings. Commander Duan, the emperor spoke with an icy cold voice that revealed a coldness that was chilling to the bone. Your Majesty, Duan Ling Tian replied, take the embroidered uniform guard under your command and bring that unfilial son here right now. I will summon the Prime Minister and Divine Might Marquis to enter the palace immediately. I want that unfilial son to be executed in this throne room as a warning to others. The emperor's voice seemed to come from the depths of hell and was incomparably gloomy. He was completely enraged. Duan Ling Tian let out a breath of cold air. It was said that emperors were heartless, and today he could be considered to have completely experienced it. However, when he thought about the 5th Prince's deeds, Duan Ling Tian came to an understanding. The 5th Prince only had himself to blame. Yes. Duan Ling Tian received the orders and left the imperial palace with Shang Quan, then he gathered the 12 embroidered uniform guard under his command to directly head to the 5th Prince's estate. When the guards at the 5th Prince's estate's main gate saw Duan Ling Tian coming over with his subordinates, their faces all went pale. Commander Duan. They recognized the embroidered uniform guard's Valador robes and respectfully bowed to Duan Ling Tian, not daring to block his path. Duan Ling Tian paid no attention to these guards and brought Shang Quan and the 12 embroidered uniform guards to directly gallop their horses into the 5th Prince's estate. Duan Ling Tian, you're being presumptuous. Before long, the 5th Prince came out, and behind him, the white-browed old man followed. Presumptuous. Duan Ling Tian's gaze focused as he looked at the 5th Prince and indifferently said, 5th Prince, this time I'm following the orders of His Majesty to invite you to the palace. So I hope 5th Prince can cooperate. HMPH. If my imperial father wanted to summon me, why would he need you to come here? Duan Lingtian, what exactly do you want to do? The fifth prince's face sank, as he obviously didn't believe what Duan Lingtian said. Fifth prince, if you don't cooperate, then don't blame me for using force. Men, invite the fifth prince. As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he abruptly ordered with a voice that was like exploding thunder. Instantly, besides Shang Quan, who was behind Duan Lingtian, Old Hong, Old Qin, and the 10 embroidered uniform guards moved forward, wanting to capture the fifth prince. Presumptuous. The face of the white-browed old man behind the fifth prince sank as he shouted out explosively and protected the fifth prince behind him. If anyone obstructs, kill them. Duan Lingtian continued to order with a cold and indifferent voice. Instantly, the 10 embroidered uniform guards attacked, and their embroidered spring sabers whistled out with piercingly cold lights as if transforming into poisonous snakes that bit towards the old man. The old man's figure trembled, and 1,200 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above him. A 9th-level nascent soul martial artist. However, even though he was a 9th-level nascent soul martial artist, before the tacit joint attack of 10 7th and 8th-level nascent soul martial artists, he didn't gain the slightest advantage, even to the extent he was in a slightly sorry state when being enveloped by the net of sabers from the combined attacks of the embroidered spring sabers. Right at this moment, a burst of whistling echoed out. It was precisely the fifth prince who blew it. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Instantly, incomparably swift figures flew over one after the other from all over the estate. These people were led by an old man. This old man wore azure clothes, and his movements brought along a shocking aura from his extraordinary cultivation. Behind the old man, another 5 old men followed close behind, and besides that there was another group of middle-aged men with frosty expressions following close behind the old man. These middle-aged men were precisely the death soldiers that the fifth prince trained, death soldiers that only lived for slaughter. The old man in the lead dashed out, and above him, 1,500 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. Half-step void stage. Old Pooh, I want that Duan Lingtian dead. The fifth prince's gaze shone when he saw the old man, and he abruptly ordered as if he was filled with confidence in the old man. Don't worry, your highness, none of them will survive. The old man's voice spread out in the air, and he seemed to transform into a great rock as he enveloped Duan Lingtian's location. Shang Quan, kill him. Duan Lingtian's gaze was calm when faced with this half-step void stage powerhouse that was flying towards him, and he had a carefree expression. Yes, young master. Shang Quan's body moved at the moment he heard what Duan Lingtian said. Whoosh. Along with an awe-inspiring sound of rushing wind was a clear and melodious sword howl, then the sounds stopped abruptly. Instantly, a pillar of eye-piercing blood bloomed from the throat of the old man that was approaching in full fury. He'd only approached halfway when his head drooped and his entire body crashed onto the floor. His body was fiercely hurtled out by momentum and was completely devoid of signs of life. Dead. Besides Old Hong and Old Qin, who spurred their horses to follow by Duan Lingtian's side, no one present was able to see Shang Quan's movements clearly. In their eyes, Shang Quan had always been sitting on his horse and had never moved. Void prying stage. Old Hong and Old Qin's hearts shook, as they never imagined that the middle-aged man that had been following the commander lately was actually a void prying stage powerhouse. Moreover, he seemed to not simply be a first-level void prying martial artist. They felt their scalps go numb. No, the fifth prince's pupils constricted when he saw this scene, and he wasn't willing to believe that all this was true. His biggest reliance, an existence at the half-step void stage, had died just like that. The other 5 old men that followed behind the half-step void stage old man now had stopped their footsteps and were all shocked to the point that they were dumbstruck. The white-browed old man's figure moved to avoid the joint attack of the group of embroidered uniform guards, then he stood far away and was stunned for a moment. Only those death soldiers still pounced out to fight one after the other, but they all died beneath the embroidered spring sabers of the 10 embroidered uniform guards. Before long, blood flooded into a river at the front courtyard of the fifth prince's estate. And not a single death soldier remained standing. Fifth prince, I hope you're able to cooperate. Duan Lingtian's icy cold gaze swept past the white-browed old man and the other 5 old men that were dumbstruck, then it finally descended onto the fifth prince. The fifth prince seemed to have been slightly driven out of his wits, and only when the 10 embroidered uniform guards surrounded him did he recover from his shock. Duan Lingtian, you'll die for sure. The fifth prince looked at Duan Lingtian and spoke with a voice that was filled with icy coldness. Fifth prince, I've already said this before, I'm following the orders of His Majesty to invite you to the palace. Duan Lingtian continued to speak. As for the fifth prince's threat, he didn't take it to heart. His Majesty, has that old goat noticed something? The fifth prince's eyes flashed with a trace of viciousness as he said this in a deep voice. Old goat. Duan Lingtian glanced deeply at the fifth prince. It looked like the fifth prince didn't respect the emperor in the slightest, because he had actually called the emperor an old goat. Take him. Duan Lingtian turned his horse around and left the fifth prince's estate. He didn't notice that when the fifth prince was dragged onto the back of a horse by an embroidered uniform guard, the fifth prince had made an eye signal to the white-browed old man. And the white-browed old man nodded with a serious expression. After Duan Lingtian took the fifth prince away, the white-browed old man left the fifth prince's estate at the first possible moment and flashed straight for the imperial palace. In terms of speed, he far surpassed Duan Lingtian's group that was on horseback. When Duan Lingtian arrived at the throne room with the fifth prince, he noticed that besides the emperor, there were quite a few people present. Besides Divine Might Marquis Ni Yuan and Prime Minister Ji Yuting, the senior marquis of the Divine Might Marquis estate had actually come as well, and he was now seated nearby. He was obviously given a seat by the emperor. Duan Lingtian brought Shang Quan and the 12 embroidered uniform guards to enter the throne room in swift strides. Imperial Father. The fifth prince seemed as if he'd seen his savior when he saw the emperor, and he knelt on the ground. This Duan Lingtian is reckless and impudent enough to actually dare to forcefully enter my estate and kill my subordinates. Imperial Father, you must give justice to your son. The emperor's gaze was slightly cold as he said, in a deep voice, it was I who asked Commander Duan to capture you. What, you have an objection? The fifth prince looked at the emperor as he asked, Imperial Father, I wonder what I've done wrong. What you've done, you're clear of it in your heart. Could it be that you want me to personally tell you? The emperor's face sank, and his eyes revealed a sense of gloominess. Imperial Father, you must not listen to the slanderous talk of that vile person. This Duan Lingtian and I have personal grudges, he's framing me. The fifth prince hurriedly said. Framing. The emperor sneered. Do you really think I'm a self-indulgent ruler? I'd once suspected you, but then I thought that you're my own son after all, so I convinced myself and didn't suspect you again. But unexpectedly, now that the truth has been revealed, it really was you. My own good son. Imperial Father, I don't know what you're talking about. The fifth prince pretended to be confused. Right when the emperor's face sank and he was about angrily rebuke the fifth prince, a calm voice sounded from outside the throne room. Xuan. In next to no time, a white-clothed middle-aged man slowly walked in. His speed looked to be slow, but in the blink of an eye, he arrived within the audience hall. Meanwhile, another person followed behind him. It was precisely the white-browed old man from the fifth prince's estate. Your Majesty the Mortal Emperor. For a moment, Ni Yuan and Ji Yuting looked at the person who'd arrived and slightly bowed. Duan Lingtian's brows raised. Mortal Emperor. He's the Mortal Emperor Chu. The imperial family's formidable void stage powerhouse. Fourth Imperial Brother. The Emperor's enraged expression slightly eased up when he noticed the arrival of Mortal Emperor Chu. Why have you come? Imperial Brother, I heard you want to punish Xuan. The Mortal Emperor Chu looked at the Emperor with a pair of calm eyes that flashed with a grave intent to kill. But it was caught by Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's heart jerked, as he suddenly felt that the arrival of the Mortal Emperor Chu would probably not be so simple. The Emperor took a deep breath and said, with a hurried tone, Fourth Imperial Brother, there's something you don't know. This unfilial son actually dared to poison me, his father. Tell me, does an unfilial son like this deserve death? He was incomparably agitated. Unfilial son. The Mortal Emperor Chu's dignified brows raised as he said indifferently, then if he isn't Imperial Brother's son. Fourth Imperial Brother, what do you mean by this? The Emperor's face went slightly grim as his fierce gaze descended onto Mortal Emperor Chu. Xuan, tell him. Mortal Emperor Chu looked at the Emperor with a calm gaze as he spoke indifferently. Meanwhile, the fifth prince, Chu Xuan, directly stood up and respectfully bowed to Mortal Emperor Chu. Yes, Imperial Father. Silence. Along with Chu Xuan's voice, the entire scene was deathly silent. The fifth prince addressed Mortal Emperor Chu as Imperial Father. What was actually going on? Besides Duan Lingtian and Shang Quan, who could still stay calm, the faces of the other people present changed. 227 Chapter 228, Grand Battle in the Throne Room. As expected, Duan Lingtian's eyes focused as he came to a sudden understanding. When mortal Emperor Chu appeared, Duan Lingtian noticed that the atmosphere was slightly off. Firstly, mortal Emperor Chu seemed to be extremely discontent with the emperor. Second, fifth Prince Chu Xuan, who originally knelt there pleading for forgiveness, heaved a sigh of relief when the mortal Emperor Chu appeared. It was as if he'd seen his savior. However, even then, Duan Lingtian never would have thought that the relationship between the fifth prince and mortal Emperor Chu would be that of father and son. Wouldn't that mean that this fifth prince was born of the adultery between mortal Emperor Chu and the emperor's concubine? The matter seemed to be slightly complicated. You too. The emperor was angered to the point that his pupils constricted, and he pointed out with his finger at mortal Emperor Chu and Chu Xuan and was unable to catch his breath. Imperial brother, Xuan doesn't know medicine. The poison he infected you with is from a medicinal formula I gave him. Mortal Emperor Chu looked at the emperor with a calm gaze, as if he was saying something of no significance. These years, I've guarded the imperial family and had no other hope besides seeing my only son ascend to the throne. But unfortunately, imperial brother, you're too greedy for power, and you're already past 60 but still unwilling to give up your throne. Only son, what mortal Emperor Chu said caused the emperor's face to go deathly pale. This bastard is born of you and that by age. The emperor only felt a gloomy feeling in his chest when he thought about how he'd worn a green hat all these years. Old goat, don't insult my mother. Chu Xuan coldly swept the emperor with his gaze. Since it had already come to this, he didn't conceal it anymore. Ha ha, ha 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 ha, the emperor burst out into a loud laugh, laughing madly. Only after a short while did he stop and look at mortal Emperor Chu, then said, in a cold voice, "Fourth imperial brother, you falling out with me here today because of this bastard ought to not be to simply protect his life, right?" Mortal Emperor Chu deeply glanced at the emperor. "Imperial brother, I came here today because I hope you can give up the throne to a better successor." Give up the throne? What the mortal Emperor Chu said caused another stir again. Even Duan Lingtian never thought that this mortal Emperor Chu would be so unscrupulous. What if I'm unwilling? The emperor asked, in a low voice, and his eyes were filled with a piercingly cold light. Imperial brother, you're an intelligent person. Mortal Emperor Chu said indifferently, and his calm tone, however, had a coercive meaning mixed within. What? Fourth imperial brother wants to force me to abdicate the throne? The emperor abruptly started laughing, and the coldness on his face grew stronger as if his face was covered in a layer of ice. So what if I am? Mortal Emperor Chu had a carefree expression. He didn't regard the emperor with respect in the slightest. Presumptuous. The emperor's face sank and he shouted out coldly. Right at this moment, the mortal emperor paid no attention to the emperor, as he seemed to have noticed something and looked towards the outside of the throne room. Moreover, at the same time that he noticed, Shang Quan, who was beside Duan Lingtian, looked towards the outside as well. Subsequently, the Divine Might Marquis Estate's senior Marquis and Marquis both looked towards the outside. An unrestrained figure slowly walked in. The figure wore a silk headdress and held a feather fan in his hand. The person was a middle-aged scholar, and he slowly walked in to stand behind the emperor. The emperor heaved a sigh of relief when he noticed the arrival of the scholarly middle-aged man. Dean Sima, those who adjust their actions to the times are wise. Could it be that you think that it is sufficient to rival me merely by yourself? Mortal Emperor Chu's gaze descended onto the middle-aged scholarly man, and a sense of gloominess was mixed within his voice. Dean Sima, Duan Lingtian's face revealed shock. The middle-aged man that appeared currently was no one else but precisely the teacher of Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind Department, Sima Chongfeng. Just now, this mortal Emperor Chu had called Sima Chongfeng, Dean. Could it be that this teacher Sima of his was the elusive Dean of Paladin Academy? If it really was so, then this Dean had really concealed himself too deeply. Your Majesty the mortal Emperor, give up. Sima Chongfeng looked at mortal Emperor Chu and said indifferently, His Majesty the Emperor is the legitimate ruler from the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial family. If you want to forcefully make him abdicate his throne, then not to mention me, even the senior Marquis would probably not stand idly by. Senior Marquis, mortal Emperor Chu's gaze descended onto the old man that sat nearby, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. Not to mention the fact that the senior Marquis is now infected with the poison of the dark nether mink and is unable to utilize his origin energy. Even if the senior Marquis wasn't poisoned, so what? Could it be that you think that you two joining hands would be sufficient to match me? As he spoke up to this point, Mortal Emperor Chu's face revealed a sense of arrogance and conceit. Ha 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 ha, Your Majesty the Mortal Emperor, as expected of one who's worthy of being called the rare talent in the martial Tao of the imperial family. The old man who sat nearby couldn't help but start laughing. Senior Marquis, I hope your divine might Marquis estate won't interfere in today's matter. Otherwise, don't blame this mortal emperor for showing no mercy. Mortal Emperor Chu looked at the senior Marquis and spoke with a tone that didn't lack a threatening intent. HMPH. The senior Marquis hadn't spoken when Divine Might Marquis Ni Yuan had already taken a step forward. Your Majesty the Mortal Emperor, the Divine Might Marquis estate only respects the legitimate ruler from the imperial family. If you really want to force the emperor to abdicate his throne, then it's committing high treason. I, Ni Yuan, will be the first to stand up and help His Majesty get through the difficulties and kill the traitors. Good, Divine Might Marquis, it wasn't a waste that I trusted you all these years. Seeing the Divine Might Marquis's attitude, the emperor couldn't help but emit a gratified smile. Although I, Duan Lingtian, am incapable, I'm indebted to His Majesty's favor, and thus am willing to offer my services to His Majesty. Duan Lingtian stated his position as well. You're Duan Lingtian. Mortal Emperor Chu's gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. You don't have the qualifications to choose. I won't trouble Your Majesty the Mortal Emperor to worry about whether I have the qualifications to choose, Duan Lingtian said indifferently. Duan Lingtian, you're presumptuous. Chu Xuan's face sank as he shouted in a low voice. Duan Lingtian looked at Chu Xuan and laughed. Fifth Prince. Oh, no, you aren't the fifth prince anymore. You. Chu Xuan's face went grim, and his eyes were filled with piercingly cold killing intent. Duan Lingtian, you'll surely lose today. I'll capture you and send you to my cousin's sister and let her personally tear you into thousands of pieces. What, fifth prince, are you so sure that you too will surely win? Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as he lightly smiled. You'll know really soon. After today, I, Chu Xuan, will become the emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Chu Xuan's gaze became filled with fanaticism. It was as if he'd already seen the scene of himself reigning supreme over the lands. Wishful thinking. The emperor sneered. Imperial brother, you'll know very soon if it's wishful thinking. Mortal Emperor Chu's gaze swept past everyone present before descending onto Prime Minister Ji Yuting. Prime Minister Ji Yu, you're wise and astute, so I'll give you two choices. 1. Die with the old goat. 2. Serve my son and assist my son in governing the Crimson Sky Kingdom. When Ji Yuting saw Mortal Emperor Chu coming, he knew that he would have to make a choice. Now he could discern that the emperor's gaze was looking at him as well. For a moment, he was in a difficult position. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Right at this moment, black figures flashed in from outside the throne room one by one and descended behind Mortal Emperor Chu. A total of 8 people. They were all old men who wore black clothes, and each one of them had cold and indifferent gazes. It was precisely Mortal Emperor Chu's Spectre Guard. Your Majesty the Mortal Emperor, those thick-headed half-step void stage martial artists have already been dealt with. One of the Spectre Guards reported to Mortal Emperor Chu. Prime Minister Ji Yu, what's your choice? Mortal Emperor Chu looked at Ji Yuting and asked once again, with a tone that contained an extra sense of impatience. Ji Yuting didn't hesitate anymore when he saw the Spectre Guards arrive. Your Majesty, I'm sorry, he said to the Emperor, before flying towards Mortal Emperor Chu. His speed was fast, but someone was even faster. Bang! Sima Chanfeng, who was behind the Emperor, raised his hand to condense a palm print from origin energy that carried along a trace of a terrifying aura, and it instantly descended onto Ji Yuting, killing him. Sima Changfeng, Mortal Emperor Chu's face sank. The white robe on his body fluttered without wind, and his long hair waved about. He was utterly enraged. Whoosh! Sima Changfeng moved to flash straight towards Mortal Emperor Chu with an imposing manner that could pierce through the sky. Above Sima Changfeng, 3,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form and moved out with immense force. Second level of the void prying stage. Duan Lingtian was surprised, as he never thought that the strength of this teacher Sima would be so strong. HMPH. Mortal Emperor Chu's face revealed disdain when faced with Sima Changfeng flashing over. Then his body lightly trembled and 4,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above him. Third level of the void prying stage. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted when he saw this scene. Worthy of being publicly acknowledged as the strongest void-prying stage powerhouse in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, this mortal Emperor Chu was actually a third-level void-prying stage powerhouse. Dean Sima, this old man will come assist you. The old man that had sat at the side since the beginning revealed his second-level void-prying stage cultivation. Father, be careful. Ni Yuan's body moved and entered into the battle. Above him, 2,000 ancient mammoths condensed into form. Obviously, Ni Yuan had already broken through to the first level of the void-prying stage. For a time, the earth quaked and the hills swayed within the throne room. The speed at which the four void-prying stage powerhouses fought had caused one to see things in a blur and be utterly unable to see it clearly. At least Duan Lingtian couldn't see it clearly in the slightest. The only thing he was able to discern was that even though it was 3 against 1, mortal Emperor Chu still had the advantage. Senior Marquis, looks like your dark nether minx poison has been cured. Ni Yuan, I really never thought that you would have stepped into the void-prying stage. Mortal Emperor Chu's voice had a sense of astonishment mixed within. The feather fan in Sima Chongfeng's hand flashed out quickly and revealed the strength of a grade 7 spirit weapon. The father and son Divine Might Marquis pair took out their grade 7 spirit weapons as well. HMPH, so what if you use spirit weapons? 3 void-prying martial artists, and only 2 have comprehended force. I'll let all of you experience advanced sword force. A dark blue 3-foot-long blade appeared in mortal Emperor Chu's hand. Whoosh! Everywhere the 3-foot-long blade passed, the attacks of Sima Chongfeng and the others were directly disintegrated as easily as breaking dry branches. Everyone was shocked the moment he swung his sword. Advanced sword force, the senior marquis exclaimed in surprise, then he shouted out explosively, retreat. Instantly, the 3 of them flashed backwards in panic, avoiding mortal Emperor Chu's sword. They didn't dare go head-on against it. Spectre guards, heed my command. Capture Duan Lingtian alive and kill everyone else without exception. Chu Xuan ordered. Instantly, the 8 spectre guards pounced towards Duan Lingtian and the group of embroidered uniform guards under his command. 1 TL note. A Chinese expression that basically means cuckold. 228 Chapter 229. The Death of Mortal Emperor Chu. The 8 spectre guards were 8 half-step void stage powerhouses, and now they seemed like a group of starved wolves pouncing on food as they pounced at Duan Lingtian's group. HMPH. A light, cold grunt sounded, and a strand of green sword light flashed out swiftly. Whoosh! Merely a strand of sword light flashed by and the 8 spectre guards that rushed over died before they could even carry out their slaughter. In the sky above, 3,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes flashed before disappearing. Besides Duan Lingtian and the group of embroidered uniform guards behind him, the gazes of the other people present descended onto Shang Quan, who stood beside Duan Lingtian, as they'd never thought that there was actually a void-prying stage powerhouse at Duan Lingtian's side. Moreover, it was a second-level void-prying stage powerhouse. 3 second-level void-prying martial artists and a first-level void-prying martial artist. Very good, all of you, come at me together. Mortal Emperor Chu burst into a laugh, and his tone was filled with a domineering sense. I'm more than enough to kill you. Shang Quan's voice had a trace of calmness mixed within. He walked out in large strides as if he was teleporting and instantly appeared near mortal Emperor Chu. Just a second-level void-prying martial artist like you. Mortal Emperor Chu sneered, and the dark blue grade 7 spirit sword in his hand flashed out to pierce towards Shang Quan. The sword gave rise to a burst of deafening and sharp whistling sounds. Relying on the amplification of a grade 7 spirit sword, the 4,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes above mortal Emperor Chu instantly increased to around 5,100 ancient mammoths. This wasn't all. Along with the addition of a strand of a mysterious and profound aura on his 3-foot-long blade, the ancient mammoth silhouettes on his body increased by another 500 or so. Mortal Emperor Chu, when exerting his full strength, was capable of releasing around 5,600 ancient mammoth silhouettes from drawing upon the energy of heaven and earth. A shocking strength, besides the spirit weapon, an addition of another strength of over 500 ancient mammoths. The memories of rebirth martial emperor flashed within Duan Lingtian's mind. He came to a sudden understanding and knew that mortal Emperor Chu's addition of another strength of 500 over ancient mammoths was strength that he had gained from the half-step advanced sword force. Force is something that only an existence at the void-prying stage or above is capable of coming into contact with. Among it, elementary comprehension of force provides an addition of the strength of 200 ancient mammoths. Half-step advanced force provides an addition of the strength of 500 ancient mammoths. As for the advanced force, whoosh, Shang Quan moved as well, whistling out with a sword strike. He was fearless when faced with Mortal Emperor Chu's full force attack, which was combined with the execution of Mortal Emperor Chu's half-step advanced sword force. By means of the amplification from the grade 7 spirit weapon, the 3,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes above Shang Quan instantly increased to nearly 3,900 ancient mammoths as well. And right at this moment, a strand of aura that was even more mysterious and formidable than the aura on Mortal Emperor Chu's sword jumped out of the 3-foot-long blade in Shang Quan's hand. Instantly, the number of ancient mammoth silhouettes above Shang Quan increased by an entire 2,000. At full strength, Shang Quan exploded out with the strength of nearly 5,900 ancient mammoths. Advanced sword force. Mortal Emperor Chu was full of confidence, but when he noticed the terrifying aura on Shang Quan's sword and saw the nearly 5,900 ancient mammoth silhouettes that dashed out from above Shang Quan, his face went ghastly white. Meanwhile, Shang Quan and Mortal Emperor Chu's figures crossed each other. A strand of fresh blood sprayed out. Shang Quan stood there firmly and wasn't injured in the slightest. Mortal Emperor Chu's chest had been pierced through, and the grade 7 spirit weapon in his hand was even sent flying. Bang! Mortal Emperor Chu's body crashed onto the ground. The strength of nearly 5,900 ancient mammoths that Shang Quan exerted completely triumphed over the strength of 5,600 ancient mammoths that Mortal Emperor Chu exerted. How could it be possible? Advanced sword force. Mortal Emperor Chu struggled as he stared at Shang Quan with a face full of disbelief, as he wasn't willing to believe that all that had just happened was real. He considered his half-step advanced sword force to be extremely rare even within 4th level and below void-prying martial artists within the entire Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. But the person before him was only at the 2nd level of the void-prying stage and had already comprehended the true advanced sword force. Half-step advanced force only provided an additional strength of 500 ancient mammoths. However, advanced force provided an additional strength of 2,000 ancient mammoths. The two levels of force were not even remotely on the same level. Mortal Emperor Chu died. He died with a belly full of regret and unwillingness. Imperial Father! Chu Shu exclaimed in grief. His pupils sprung wide open and his body lightly trembled. He was unwilling to believe all this was real. At this moment, he felt as if the sky was crumbling. The path before him had become dull and lightless. Only the sound of Chu Xuan's grievous exclamation remained within the throne room, as besides Duan Lingtian, the gazes of everyone else descended onto Shang Quan. After a long time, may I ask, is Mortal Emperor Chu's sword force not at the level of advanced sword force? Sima Chongfeng looked at Shang Quan. He was rather afraid of this expert who could kill Mortal Emperor Chu with a single sword strike. Of course not. Shang Quan glanced at Sima Chongfeng with a calm gaze and slowly said, his sword force is only at the level of half-step advanced force. Although the half-step advanced force and advanced force are only separated by a single level, the difference is like the difference between heaven and earth. The sword force I executed earlier was precisely the true advanced sword force. Sima Chongfeng nodded and was enlightened. The difference was indeed like the difference between heaven and earth. A difference of an entire strength of 1,500 ancient mammoths. This is the strength of the void stage. Although all of this was nothing within the memories of rebirth Martial Emperor, Duan Lingtian was still slightly excited in his heart, and a trace of yearning was revealed from his eyes. Imperial Father! That Chu Xuan now lay his head on Mortal Emperor Chu's body with a dejected expression. Duan Lingtian walked over with large strides. He paid no attention to Chu Xuan, who retreated out of terror, and directly put away the spatial ring and grade 7 spirit weapon on Mortal Emperor Chu's body, then he put away the spatial rings of the 8 specter guards. After putting away all of the spoils of the battle into his spatial ring, Duan Lingtian laughed slyly and looked at Sima Chongfeng and the Emperor. Teacher Sima, Your Majesty, both of you don't mind that I keep these spoils, right? Sima Chongfeng shook his head and angrily said, Kid, you've already put it all away. Would we saying we mind be of any use? Duan Lingtian laughed embarrassedly. These spoils were all from the contribution of this expert by your side, so it ought to be yours. After the Emperor recovered from his shock, his gaze flickered with a dazzling bright light and didn't leave Shang Quan's vicinity. HMPH. Only after Shang Quan snorted coldly and swept the Emperor with his cold gaze did the Emperor withdraw his gaze. He was slightly embarrassed. Commander Duan, I'm really envious of you, having such an expert following by your side. The Emperor looked at Duan Lingtian and lightly smiled. Your Majesty is too kind. I wonder, How should we deal with these two people? Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto Chu Xuan, who had a dejected expression, and the white-browed old man, who had a deathly pale face. Whoosh! At almost the exact moment Duan Lingtian finished speaking, the emperor moved. In the blink of an eye, Chu Xuan and the white-browed old man were killed by the emperor with his own two hands. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted, as he never imagined that the emperor was actually in existence at the half-step void stage. Duan Lingtian's gaze shone when he saw the emperor return to the throne, and his shining gaze descended onto Chu Xuan and the white-browed old man's spatial rings. Your Majesty, there. Take them. The emperor shook his head. Commander Duan, are you in need of money? After Duan Lingtian put away the spatial rings of Chu Xuan and the white-browed old man, he nodded and said, yes, extremely. The emperor nodded, and his gaze flashed before he slowly said, Commander Duan, today's matter was all thanks to your contribution. If you weren't present, this emperor, might not exist anymore. I'll bestow 10 million gold to you, how about it? 10 million gold. Duan Lingtian's breathing became hurried. 10 million gold was equivalent to 1 billion silver. Thank you, Your Majesty. Duan Lingtian hurriedly thanked. Kid, you're really a money grubber. The senior marquis shook his head and laughed. His gaze occasionally flashed past Shangquan, as he was extremely surprised that Duan Lingtian had such a formidable existence by his side. Although Ni Yuan didn't say anything, he was shocked as well. Alas, suddenly, the emperor sighed. From the incident of today, I've finally realized that it's time I give up the throne. Senior Marquis, Dean Sima, Divine Might Marquis, who do you think I should allow to inherit the command of the imperial family and become the new emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom? Your Majesty, this is something that's better to be decided by yourself, Sima Chongfeng hurriedly said. It's exactly as Dean Sima says. If your Majesty is truly unsure of who to give the throne to, then your Majesty can test the princes. The person that passes the test will inherit command of the imperial family, the senior marquis slowly said. Regardless of who inherits the throne, Ni Yuan will surely be ready to die for him. Ni Yuan stated his position. Divine Might Marquis, I haven't congratulated you for successfully breaking through to the void-prying stage. Alas, I wonder if I will be able to break through to the void-prying stage in my lifetime. After I give up the throne, I should properly study the martial Tao. After the incident today, the emperor seemed as if he had suddenly been enlightened and was able to get over many things. Before long, Duan Lingtian's group took their leave. Teacher Sima, I never imagined that you'd actually be the Dean of Paladin Academy. After leaving the throne room, Duan Lingtian looked at Sima Chongfeng with an emotional expression. As far as he was concerned, Sima Chongfeng ought to be the concealed fourth void stage powerhouse within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. As for Divine Might Marquis Ni Yuan, he had only broken through recently. I never would have imagined that you had such a formidable existence by your side. Today, if it wasn't for him, even if I, the senior marquis, and the Divine Might Marquis joined hands, it would still be difficult to subdue mortal Emperor Chu. Sima Chongfeng glanced at Shangquan, who was beside Duan Lingtian, and sighed emotionally. Little Tian, he is. Ni Yuan glanced at Shangquan, and asked Duan Lingtian curiously. Duan Lingtian hadn't even spoken when Shangquan spoke first. I'm the young master's servant. Servant, Ni Yuan, Sima Chongfeng, and the senior marquis were all dumbstruck when they heard what Shangquan said. This second-level void-prying stage expert that has comprehended the advanced sword force and was able to defeat an existence at the third stage of the void-prying stage actually called himself the servant of Duan Lingtian. Has this world gone mad? Even the group of embroidered uniform guards couldn't help but feel ashamed. Although they had experienced how terrifying Shangquan was earlier in the Fifth Prince's estate and knew that Shangquan referred to Duan Lingtian as young master, they'd never thought that Shangquan would be Duan Lingtian's servant. Is there a need to be so surprised? Duan Lingtian looked at the expressions of the group of people present and rubbed his nose. This caused them to be speechless. 229 Chapter 230, Homecoming. The imperial family finally returned to peace after the death of mortal Emperor Chu. As for the remaining matters, they didn't have anything to do with Duan Lingtian. The incident this time was too shocking, so the emperor sealed off the information flow and didn't let the news spread out. The imperial city was peaceful as usual. Since returning from the imperial palace that day, Duan Lingtian returned all 12 embroidered uniform guards, including Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, to the Divine Might Marquis estate. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang had followed Duan Lingtian for such a long time, and Duan Lingtian had already taught them everything he could teach them, thus he could be considered to have fulfilled the promise he made to the Divine Might Marquis that day. Half a month later, the emperor summoned Duan Lingtian once again. When Duan Lingtian saw the large stack of gold bills before him, his eyes shone. These gold bills were all of the 10,000 denomination. A total of 1,000 bills. 10 million gold. Duan Lingtian put away all the gold without the slightest bit of hesitation, then he looked at the emperor. "Thank you, your majesty. Commander Duan, I heard from the Divine Might Marquis that you've returned all 12 of the embroidered uniform guard members to him." "You are." The emperor looked curiously at Duan Lingtian, as he didn't know why Duan Lingtian would act in such a way. "Your majesty, actually, when I asked you to establish the embroidered uniform guard for me that day, I only had the intention of having some fun. Now I've had my fun, so your majesty, please disband this organization. Besides that, I actually held back when I gave your majesty the poison removal pill that day, and I'm certain in my ability to directly remove your majesty's poison." As Duan Lingtian spoke, he passed a complete grade 9 spirit cleansing pill to the emperor. After the emperor consumed it and dissolved the medicinal strength of the pill, the emperor noticed that the poison within his body was completely removed, and a shocked expression appeared on his face. The emperor glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian. "Commander Duan, looks like you really held back towards me in the past." Duan Lingtian laughed embarrassedly. "Why aren't you continuing to hold back now?" the emperor asked curiously. "Your majesty, there's no point in me holding back any longer. I intend to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom soon and head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom." Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, and his eyes revealed traces of lights of anticipation. Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. The emperor was shocked, then he recovered his composure and nodded. With Commander Duan's natural talent, staying in the Crimson Sky Kingdom is indeed unworthy of your talents. However, I will still maintain the embroidered uniform guard. Once Commander Duan is weary of the outside world, the Crimson Sky Kingdom will always welcome you back. At that time, regardless of who the emperor is, you'll still be the one and only commander of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's embroidered uniform guard. This is my promise to you. Thank you, your majesty. Duan Lingtian hurriedly thanked the emperor. Besides that, if you have any needs before you leave, you can tell me and I will satisfy your request, the emperor added. Duan Lingtian expressed his gratitude once again. Right, the emperor suddenly looked at Duan Lingtian, and his gaze turned slightly dubious. Commander Duan, I wonder what you think of my daughter, Bai Yao. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled and said, Princess Bai Yao is beautiful and charming, like a celestial maiden that has dropped into the mortal world. She is one of the few beauties that I've seen. The emperor glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian and asked, then if I betroth Princess Bai Yao to you, would you agree? Duan Lingtian felt stifled, as he never expected the emperor would be so direct. Your Majesty, there's something you don't know. I already have 2 fiancés at home. As for Princess Bai Yao, I don't have that type of feeling towards her at the moment, and it's more of a feeling of friendship. I understand. The emperor nodded. A little while after Duan Lingtian left, a beautiful figure arrived at the throne room and looked at the emperor. Imperial father, what did he say? The emperor sighed. Bai Yao, he said he doesn't have that type of feeling towards you for the moment, and it's more of a feeling of friendship. He really said this? The beautiful figure lightly trembled, and within the clear and melodious voice was a sense of bitterness mixed within. After Duan Lingtian left the palace, he bought 5 Fergana horses. At noon that day, Duan Lingtian, Li Ru, Li Fei, Ke and Shang Quan each rode a Fergana horse and left the imperial city, heading straight towards the direction of Swallow Mountain County. This time, Duan Lingtian intended to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom to head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and didn't know when he'd be able to return. So Duan Lingtian planned to return to visit Fresh Breeze Town Li family, which could be considered a homecoming. After that, he'd accompany Li Fei to the Aurora City Li clan to see her grandfather. The Fergana horses only spent 2 months completing a journey that riding a normal horse would require half a year's time to complete. After 2 months, Duan Lingtian's group rode on the public road outside of Aurora City but didn't enter Aurora City and instead continued forward towards Fresh Breeze Town. He wouldn't stay long in Fresh Breeze Town, at most he would stay a night. Thus, it would be the same if they returned to Aurora City tomorrow. This was also the first time Li Fei had returned to the Fresh Breeze town with Duan Lingtian, and Li Fei's heart was filled with curiosity and yearning towards the place that Duan Lingtian grew up in. Fresh Breeze town was the same Fresh Breeze town from before. Duan Lingtian's group of 5 rode their horses into Fresh Breeze town, and they attracted the gazes of everyone from everywhere they passed. After all, 5 Fergana horses were too shocking. 5 Fergana horses were equivalent to 50,000 gold, or 5 million silver. This little amount of money was nothing in Duan Lingtian's eyes currently, but towards the people of Fresh Breeze town, it was a sky-high amount. Who's he? The crowd of Fresh Breeze town residents' hearts were filled with surprise. That seems to be Duan Lingtian. Before long, someone recognized Duan Lingtian. Even though 3 years had passed and the immaturity from Duan Lingtian's face had completely vanished, Duan Lingtian's appearance hadn't changed greatly. It's really Duan Lingtian. I never expected him to return again. Yeah, the last time he returned, he annihilated the Fang family. This time, he wouldn't think of annihilating the Chen family and allow the Li family to monopolize the town, right? It's possible. The Li family is really lucky to actually have such an extraordinary disciple like Duan Lingtian, and he's even gone to Aurora City's Li clan. For some time, the crowd of Fresh Breeze town residents discussed animatedly. However, they didn't relate Duan Lingtian to the Duan Lingtian, whose name was spread around and gave rise to much discussion lately. After all, in their opinion, it was considered to be not bad that Duan Lingtian was able to go to Aurora City. And they'd never once thought that the Duan Lingtian from the Imperial City would be the same Duan Lingtian that came from Fresh Breeze town. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth twitched when he heard what the Fresh Breeze town residents said. Annihilate the Chen family. Was he such a savage person in the eyes of these people? K'er and Li Fei, who spurred their horses to ride beside Duan Lingtian, had long since covered their mouths and started laughing lightly. Let's go home. Duan Lingtian spurred his horse forward, directly towards the Li family estate. The Li family members all came out to greet him when they found out that Duan Lingtian had returned. From Patriarch Li Nanfeng to all the elders that stayed within the Li family estate, everyone had come. Patriarch, elders. Duan Lingtian greeted the Patriarch and the elders. It's good that you're back, come in. Li Nanfeng and the other elders welcomed Duan Lingtian in. Along with Duan Lingtian's return, the entire Li family estate was decorated with lanterns and decorations. It was as if it was the new year. 5th Elder, where's Li Zan? After catching up for a while, Duan Lingtian still hadn't seen the little fatty, and he felt it to be slightly strange. Logically speaking, that little fatty ought to have run over at the first possible moment when he found out he'd returned. 5th Elder Li Ting said, with a smile. Li Zan went to the Aurora City Li clan 2 years ago. What, you all didn't come from there? Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. No, we returned from the Imperial City and directly returned to Fresh Breeze town. We plan to head to Aurora City tomorrow. You're leaving tomorrow? Li Ting was slightly surprised. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded and lightly smiled. Now that you mention it, I returned this time to say my farewells to the Patriarch and all the elders. Say your farewells. For a moment, the Li family higher-ups were slightly puzzled. I intend to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom and head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, Duan Lingtian explained. Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. What Duan Lingtian said caused the Patriarch and the group of elders to be shocked. This kid that started revealing his natural talent 3 years ago was now about to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom and head to the vast stage called the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdoms. Duan Lingtian, your current cultivation level. Li Nanfeng looked at Duan Lingtian and asked, slightly hesitantly. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled and slowly said, 3rd level of the Origin Core stage. Instantly, the Li family higher-ups present were all dumbstruck, and they only recovered from their shock after a long time. Li Nanfeng didn't know what to say, then he deeply glanced at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, you're the same Duan Lingtian whose name's been spread and gave rise to much discussion within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. A tossed stone raises 1,000 ripples. What Duan Lingtian said raised a large reaction within the Li family higher-ups, causing them to be stunned once again. The Duan clan's direct descendant disciple. The #1 genius within the Crimson Sky Kingdom's younger generation. The embroidered uniform guards commander. It was actually the youth that left their Fresh Breeze town. They were all excited in their hearts. In other words, your father is that Duan Rufeng. Li Nanfeng sighed. No wonder I've never heard your mother mention your father. So your father is the peerless genius that was once famous throughout the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom like you are now. However, you're even more abnormal than your father. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, then he took out a large stack of silver from his pocket and passed it to Li Nanfeng. Patriarch, there's 10 million silver here. It's a small gift from me to the Li family. Li Nanfeng, however, didn't accept it. Duan Lingtian, you're going to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. You're surely going to enter one of those large sects. The competition within the large sects are extremely intense. Keep this money and buy some medicinal pills to cultivate. Exactly. Yeah, keep it for yourself. Most of the businesses in Fresh Breeze Town is under our Li family, so we don't have a lack of money. The other elders persuaded as well. In the end, Duan Lingtian was truly helpless and could only put away the money. He could feel that the group of people before him were really thinking of his well-being, and a trace of warmth couldn't help but arise within his heart. That night, Duan Lingtian still stayed within his own courtyard. There were only 3 rooms within the courtyard. His mother stayed within her own room, and Duan Lingtian brought Kair and Li Fei along to stay in Kair's room. As for Shang Quan, he stayed in Duan Lingtian's old room. 230 Chapter 231, Life Wager by Weapons Refinement. Deep in the night, Duan Lingtian hugged the 2 girls and fell into a deep slumber. Crackle! A burst of noise entered his ears. Duan Lingtian's spiritual force shook and he instantly jolted awake. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian noticed that the entire courtyard had been lit ablaze. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian heard Shang Quan's explosive shout, then the sound of him breaking through the door and dashing out. Kair and Li Fei both heard the noise and jolted awake. The 3 of them got dressed then walked out of their rooms and noticed that Li Ru had come out as well. Tian, are all of you okay? Li Ru looked at Duan Lingtian and the girls and asked with deep concern. Although the entire courtyard was ablaze, with the speed of Duan Lingtian's group of 4, they could still easily suppress the surrounding flames. In next to no time, Shang Quan had returned, and he carried in his hand a person. It was a young man. With just a glance, Duan Lingtian recognized this young man. Li Xin. Li Xin, the son of the former 7th elder Li Kun. Duan Lingtian's face was gloomy. That year when he left Fresh Breeze Town, he didn't plan to make trouble for Li Xin. But now this Li Xin was actually thick-headed enough to look for trouble with Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, it actually didn't burn you to death. Li Xin's eyes were crimson red when he noticed that Duan Lingtian and the others were safe and sound, and he had an unwilling expression on his face. Meanwhile, disordered sounds of footsteps sounded. It was Patriarch Li Nanfeng and the group of elders that had rushed over. Even many Li family disciples had rushed over with buckets in their hands, then they rushed over to put out the fire in the courtyard of Duan Lingtian's house. But unfortunately, the fire had already raged to the extent that there was no way to put it out. In the end, the entire courtyard transformed into ash. Duan Lingtian clenched his fists tightly and killing intent flickered within his eyes. This courtyard had too many of his memories. Now it was all gone. Ha 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 ha, Duan Lingtian, enraged. I precisely wanted to enrage you. It was you who destroyed my brother's life. And my father surely died because of you. I want to take revenge for them. I want to take revenge for them. Li Xin burst out into laughter when he saw Duan Lingtian's expression. Li Xin, you're courting death. Duan Lingtian's gaze went cold as he stared at Li Xin and spoke with an icy cold voice. Tian, let the Patriarch handle this matter, Li Ru said to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian let out a long breath. Only now did he realize that Patriarch Li Nanfeng and the elders were present. Duan Lingtian, don't worry. The Li clan will give you an explanation. Li Nanfeng's face was extremely unsightly. With Duan Lingtian's current status, Duan Lingtian still being able to return to visit them showed that he still considered himself a member of the Li clan. Now that Duan Lingtian had returned and stayed a night, Li Xin had actually set fire to Duan Lingtian's house. This touched Li Nanfeng's bottom line. Right, Duan Lingtian, we will give you an explanation, the Li clan elders all stated, and their gazes were filled with chilly killing intent when they looked at Li Xin. Duan Lingtian nodded. After a short moment, Duan Lingtian and his family moved into the courtyard that Li Nanfeng arranged for them. As for the matter with Li Xin, he trusted that the Patriarch would be able to handle it well, so he didn't think about it anymore. At dawn the next day, after Duan Lingtian woke up, he woke the two girls up, and then he walked around the Li family estate. After leaving this time, he didn't know when he would return again. I heard Li Xin was sentenced to death by the patriarch. He deserved it for going straight toward a barrage of spears. Exactly. Duan Lingtian is the pride of our Li family, but that Li Xin actually dared to provoke him. That's simply courting death. Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised when he heard the discussion of the Li family disciples, as he never expected the patriarch and the elders to give him such a straightforward explanation. After having their breakfast, Duan Lingtian said his farewells to the Li family higher-ups. Patriarch Li Nanfeng and the elders personally sent Duan Lingtian's group out of Fresh Breeze Town. After seeing Duan Lingtian off, they turned around and returned. Traveling by Fergana horse, Duan Lingtian's group arrived at Aurora City within 2 hours. They hadn't been at Li Fei's house for long when Duan Lingtian saw Patriarch Liao bring along a group of elders as he came over. Duan Lingtian. Liao saw Duan Lingtian once again and had a face full of smiles. At the same time that he was shocked, he was also rather gratified towards the achievements Duan Lingtian had attained. After all, Duan Lingtian was from their Li clan. When they found out that their Li clan had a figure such as Duan Lingtian, the other great clans from the nearby cities all intentionally got on friendly terms with the Li clan. And the Li clan also gained many benefits from this. As far as Liao was concerned, all of this was the contribution of Duan Lingtian. Patriarch. Duan Lingtian smiled to Liao, then he greeted the other elders, even though he wasn't quite familiar with them. Scoundrel, something has happened to Grandpa. Right at this moment, Li Fei's anxious voice that carried a trace of sobbing sounded out. What happened? Duan Lingtian's face slightly focused as he looked at Li Fei. Li Fei passed the letter in her hand to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian opened it and read. Fei, if you see this letter that Grandpa left for you when you return, then Grandpa should be dead. Actually, I'd long since wanted to help do something for my teacher. But because of your existence, Grandpa was always unable to make this decision. Now you have Lingtian to take care of you, so Grandpa can be at ease. I want to go to a place and find the person that once had a life wager by weapon refinement with my teacher and caused my teacher to die tragically. I will make him wager his life by weapon refinement with me to take revenge for my teacher. This is the only thing I can do for my teacher. That year, if it wasn't for my teacher saving me, I would have died long ago. If you see this letter, don't be sad, Grandpa died for something, and it's worth it. After finishing, Duan Lingtian's expression was incomparably gloomy. Liao sensed that something was off as well, and he asked, what happened? Duan Lingtian took a deep breath, then he passed the letter to Liao. After he finished reading, Liao's face went gloomy. Elder Li De left a year ago. At that time, he only said that he was going on a long journey. I never thought that. 1 year ago, Duan Lingtian's face went grim, and he looked at Li Fei with a worried gaze. Scoundrel. Li Fei threw herself into Duan Lingtian's embrace and started wailing. Duan Lingtian lightly patted Li Fei's back, and his eyes went cold as he looked at Liao. Patriarch, do you know where Elder Li De went? Liao shook his head. I don't know. I didn't even know Elder Li De had a teacher. However, wagering their life by weapons refinement is a clue. After all, something like this doesn't happen often. So long as we spend some time, we ought to be able to find out. I'll send people to investigate right now. Thank you, Patriarch. Duan Lingtian nodded gratefully. Liao brought the group of Li clan elders to rush off. Many orders were passed down one by one. The Li clan regarded this matter as extremely important. In the eyes of the Li clan higher-ups, even though Duan Lingtian was only a disciple with another surname, he was the pride of the Li clan. Coupled with the status of Duan Lingtian within the Crimson Sky Kingdom, even if they just wanted to curry favor with him, they would still do their very best to help him. Little Fei, don't worry, maybe Grandpa won, Duan Lingtian consoled Li Fei. Li Fei cried as she said, Grandpa has already been gone for a year. If he won, he would have returned a long time ago. Maybe Grandpa's mood was elated after winning, so he went to travel around. Before we've confirmed what happened, calm down, all right. Under Duan Lingtian's consoling, Li Fei's expression finally eased up. Scoundrel, if Grandpa lost, you must help me take revenge for Grandpa. Li Fei's beautiful eyes squinted and killing intent flickered within. Don't worry. Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed with a trace of killing intent, and he fiercely nodded. Li Fei's grandfather was also his grandfather. Duan Lingtian brought Li Fei back to his own courtyard, and when Li Ru and Kai heard of the matter regarding Li Fei's grandfather, they started consoling Li Fei as well. Duan Lingtian told the three women something, then he left the Li clan estate with Shang Quan. He directly headed to the trade market and went to the medicine store to see Tang Ying, the person in charge of Ghastly Shadow in Aurora City. "Kid, you've finally returned." Tang Ying was slightly surprised as well when he saw Duan Lingtian. However, he quickly noticed that Duan Lingtian's expression was extremely unsightly. "What? With your current status, what can make you vexed?" Presently, Duan Lingtian could be considered someone famous within the domain of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. "Tang Ying, I came to look for you this time because I have something I need your help with." Duan Lingtian spoke of his reason for coming. "Speak." Tang Ying nodded. Duan Lingtian spoke of Lida's matter to Tang Ying, then he said, "I want you to investigate through the information network of Ghastly Shadow. Find out if there's been an incident of a life wager by weapons refinement anywhere in the last year." "No problem," Tang Ying promised. "I'll be troubling you." After leaving the medicine store, Duan Lingtian went to the Lin clan estate to look for Lin Qi. "Duan Lingtian, you're a fellow that's famous throughout the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom." Lin Qi once again looked at Duan Lingtian with an extremely complicated gaze. The former youth had now grown to such a degree that he was too far behind to catch up to. "Lin Qi, I came here this time because I have something I need your help with." Duan Lingtian spoke of why he came. He came to look for Lin Qi this time precisely because he hoped that through Lin Qi, he could get the Violet Tulip Trading Company to help him acquire information. After hearing of the sequence of events, Lin Qi's expression was serious. "This is naturally not a problem. I'll go look for the person in charge of the Violet Tulip Trading Company in Aurora City right now. I'm confident that with your current status and identity, my uncle and aunt will be happy to help you." "I'll be troubling you." Duan Lingtian nodded. He wasn't in the Imperial City anymore, so besides the Li clan, the powers that he could use were only Ghastly Shadow and the Violet Tulip Trading Company. However, Duan Lingtian was confident that with the involvement of the Violet Tulip Trading Company and Ghastly Shadow, there ought to be a result very soon. Only after he left the Lin clan estate did Duan Lingtian let out a long breath and return to the Li clan estate. Heading straight towards him was a familiar face. Lian. Before Duan Lingtian arrived at the Li clan, this Lian was once in existence in the younger generation of the Li clan that was only inferior to Li Qing. Later, he even wanted to try and obtain Kai. However, after Duan Lingtian revealed his formidable strength, Li insensibly vanished. 231 Chapter 232, Answer. Duan Lingtian. Lian was slightly embarrassed when he saw Duan Lingtian. With Duan Lingtian's current status and identity, even if he had any ideas, he still wouldn't dare do anything in front of Duan Lingtian. A slight mistake could lead to him falling into a bottomless abyss. Duan Lingtian nodded indifferently. He didn't have any friendly relationship with Lian, and instead had some conflicts with him. However, he wasn't in the mood to fuss about, so he directly returned home. Lian couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief when he saw Duan Lingtian leave. He was really worried that Duan Lingtian would get even with him for old grudges. Now it would seem that it was he who was too narrow-minded. When Duan Lingtian returned home, he noticed a fat figure sitting and chatting with his mother. Li Zan. Duan Lingtian walked into the courtyard and was slightly hesitant when he spoke. Li Zan ought to be around this age now. Haha, boss. The fatty turned around. Compared to before, his fat face's immaturity had vanished. However, his pair of eyes were still so wretched. Li Zan, you've grown up. Duan Lingtian looked at the fatty and couldn't help but laugh. Subsequently, he replaced his mother and started chatting with the fatty. Boss, you're really formidable now. The moment I said you're my boss, no one in the Li clan dared offend me, Li Zan boasted, and his fat face was filled with a complacent expression. Duan Lingtian shook his head. You little fatty, when did you learn how to take advantage of someone else's influence? Boss, you fought so hard outside to become so renowned, if I don't utilize it properly, wouldn't it be a waste of your hard work? Li Zan said, in all seriousness. Can you be more shameless? Duan Lingtian rolled his eyes at Li Zan. This damned fatty was still as wretched as he was that year, and it caused Duan Lingtian to feel as if he'd returned to the days in Fresh Breeze Town all those years ago. He could still remember the son of second elder, who was given such a hard time by Li Zan that he would run the moment he saw Li Zan. Boss, tell me about what happened in the Imperial City. Li Zan was obviously extremely interested in Duan Lingtian's experiences in the Imperial City. Along with Duan Lingtian's narration, Li Zan's small eyes flickered with a bright light. Boss, why don't you take me along to the Imperial City when you leave this time? At that time, with you protecting me, wouldn't I be able to do whatever I wanted? As he finished speaking, Li Zan's face was full of yearning. Duan Lingtian shook his head. I'm afraid I can't grant your wish. Once I've dealt with the matter here, I won't stay long after I return to the Imperial City. Seeing Li Zan bewildered, Duan Lingtian continued, I intend to head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Li Zan's fat face dropped when he heard what Duan Lingtian said. Then I can only continue to stay in Aurora City. In the following days, Duan Lingtian stayed in the Li clan as he waited for news. Finally, after a month, Lin Qi brought back good news. Duan Lingtian, I've found it. Lin Qi was out of breath when he arrived, as he had obviously ran over straight after he obtained the information. You've found it. Duan Lingtian's eyes shone. Duan Lingtian, according to the information the Violet Tulip Trading Company found, a grade 8 weapons craftsman and another person had a life wager by weapons refinement 1 year ago in the county city. In the end, the quality of the spirit weapon crafted by the grade 8 weapons craftsman surpassed that of the other person, and thus that person lost his life because of this. Lin Qi finished saying with a single breath. At that time, this incident gave rise to much discussion within the county city, so even my aunt knew of it. When she found out you were investigating this matter, she sent someone on a Fergana horse at the first possible moment to notify me. Do you know that weapons craftsman's background? Duan Lingtian's face sank, and a trace of a cold light flashed within his eyes as he asked. It seems to be a member of the county city's Zhu clan, Lin Qi continued. Zhu clan. Duan Lingtian's gaze flashed, then he smiled gratefully to Lin Qi. Lin Qi, thank you. Don't mention it, we're friends, after all. Lin Qi shook his head and then said, Duan Lingtian, my aunt said that if you need any help, you can look for her after you've arrived in the county city. Don't worry. If I really do require it, I won't be courteous. Duan Lingtian nodded. After Lin Qi left, Li Fei came out of her room and was slightly agitated. Scoundrel, is there any news? Yes, there's news, but it isn't confirmed to be your grandfather, so I intend to make a trip to the county city and personally confirm it. Duan Lingtian nodded, and as he finished speaking, his gaze went slightly cold. If it's really your grandfather, then that Zhu clan's grade 8 weapons craftsman will surely die. I'll follow you, Li Fei said. Duan Lingtian didn't refuse, as he knew that he couldn't refuse her, nor did he have a reason to. The person that was most concerned about the matter now was Li Fei without a doubt. Okay, I'll tell Kair and my mother. We'll leave in a moment with Shang Quan, Duan Lingtian said. 3 Fergana horses transformed into a gust of wind that flew out of Aurora City. With the Fergana horse as their means of transport, Duan Lingtian's group of 3 only spent 7 days to rush to the Swallow Mountain County's county city. The county city was larger than Aurora City but inferior to the Imperial City. Carriages queued up like long dragons and entered like a ceaseless stream into the county city. Duan Lingtian found an inn and the 3 of them took up residence there first, then they found a nearby restaurant to have a meal. Li Fei didn't wear a veil, thus she attracted many burning gazes everywhere she passed. However, although these people were envious, they didn't dare act rashly. This was because they could discern that the violet-clothed young man that walked with the girl had an extraordinary bearing and obviously was no ordinary person. Besides that, the middle-aged man that followed behind seemed to not be simple with just a glance. In next to no time, an attendant arrived before Duan Lingtian's table and respectfully asked, "Customer, what are you having?" Slap. Duan Lingtian raised his hand and smashed down a silver ingot. I want to ask you for information about something. If you provide me with what I need, this is yours. The eyes of the attendant lit up when he heard what Duan Lingtian said. I can get so much silver by just talking. Just this silver ingot was worth his salary for a month. Customer, what do you want to know? Ask away. The attendant smiled in a flattering manner. Duan Lingtian looked at the attendant and asked, I'm not interested in anything else, I just want to ask you. 1 year ago, was there a grade 8 weapons craftsman of the Zhu clan that had a conflict with another grade 8 weapons craftsman from outside the county city? Even to the extent they competed for supremacy by weapons refinement and conducted a life wager. Customer, I was wondering what you wanted to ask, so it's this. I know this. The attendant instantly smiled when he heard Duan Lingtian's question. The grade 8 weapons craftsman of the Zhu clan you're speaking about is the Zhu clan's second elder. Now that I mention it, this Zhu clan's second elder is a famous grade 8 weapons craftsman in our Swallow Mountain County's county city. He's even capable of refining a grade 8 spirit weapon capable of providing a 19% amplification. 19%. That's top quality amongst grade 8 spirit weapons. Allegedly, he once had a life wager by weapons refinement with another grade 8 weapons craftsman many years ago. At that time, he was only able to refine a grade 8 spirit weapon that could provide an 18% amplification, but he still defeated the other weapons craftsman. Allegedly, that overconfident grade 8 weapons craftsman from 1 year ago was precisely the disciple of that grade 8 weapons craftsman from many years ago. These two master and disciple lost their lives at the hands of the same person. They can considered to be misfortunate as well. As he finished speaking, the attendant couldn't help but sigh. Li Fei's beautiful eyes were lightly red when she heard what the attendant said. Now she could almost be certain that the grade 8 weapons craftsman that had a life wager by weapons refinement with the Zhu clan's second elder was precisely her grandfather, Li De. Do you know the appearance of the grade 8 weapons craftsman that had a life wager by weapons refinement with the Zhu clan's second elder? Duan Lingtian looked at the attendant and confirmed a step further. Customer, now that I mention it, it's really a coincidence. That day, I happened to be on leave, and I had a friend who was a servant in the Zhu clan. He snuck me in and I watched the life wager with my own 2 eyes. That grade 8 weapons craftsman was an old man around the age of 70. And above the left brow of the old man was a crescent-shaped scar, the attendant slowly said word for word. Unfortunately, even though he had refined a spirit weapon with 18% amplification, he still lost. Grandfather. Li Fei's heart trembled, and she raised her head as if wanting to stop the tears that were about to flow. This silver is yours, give us some of your signature dishes. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath. Now he could be sure that the old man was indeed Li De. All right, the attendant received the silver and left jubilantly. As far as he was concerned, it was a great profit that he was able to speak a few sentences to earn a silver ingot. Scoundrel. Li Fei's eyes held tears that were about to fall and were slightly agitated. Little Fei, we've traveled an entire day, when the food comes in a while, you eat properly. After you're full, we'll go to the Zhu clan estate and make the Zhu clan's second elder pay with his life. Doesn't he like wagering his life by weapons refinement? Then I'll play with him nicely. As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, his eyes went cold. Li Fei lightly nodded, seeming obedient and cute. Shang Quan's eyes squinted as he said, with a cold and indifferent voice, young master, it's only a county city clan. You only have to say the word and I'll go annihilate him now. Shang Quan, it'll be too easy for him if you kill him right away. Duan Lingtian shook his head. Right at this moment, 2 figures walked into the restaurant. The person in the lead was a young man over the age of 20, and an old man followed behind him. The young man's complexion seemed pale and his footsteps light, obviously he had just excessively indulged himself in the bedroom. In next to no time, the young man's gaze descended onto the table Duan Lingtian sat at and descended onto Li Fei. So beautiful. The young man's breathing became hurried, and he quickly walked over. He then looked at Li Fei with a burning gaze. Young lady, may I know your name? From the beginning until the end, he completely ignored the nearby Duan Lingtian and Shang Quan. FK off. Li Qing's mood was already bad. Now that she was annoyed by such a hateful fellow, her face sank and she shouted coldly. Oh, quite ferocious. This young master likes it. The young man didn't get angry and instead was even more interested. Young lady, how about we be friends? Didn't you hear her ask you to FK off? Duan Lingtian's face sank, and he hadn't glanced at the young man all this time. Only now did the young man notice Duan Lingtian, and he instantly emitted a sneer. Kid, do you know who you're talking to? Didn't you even find out if I, Zhu Zhao, the third young master of the Zhu clan, was someone you could offend? 232 Chapter 233, Creating a Stir. Zhu clan's third young master. Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed into a line when he heard what the young man said. You're a member of the Zhu clan. Exactly. This young master's father is the second master of the Zhu clan, and the Zhu clan's patriarch is my uncle. How about it, kid? Afraid? If you're afraid, then hurry up and FK off. Zhu Zhao held his chin high and looked down at Duan Lingtian with a condescending gaze and a face full of arrogance and complacency. He didn't notice, however, that an indistinct smile had appeared on the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth. It was the smile of joy a hunter would make he found his prey. I'll give you one more chance, FK off. Duan Lingtian's eyes went slightly cold, and he directed them straight at Zhu Zhao as he spoke with a tone that had an extra bit of oppressive force. You know this young master's identity and you still dare ask this young master to FK off. Zhu Zhao was stupefied, then he revealed a savage expression and extended his hand, directly grabbing at Duan Lingtian. Since you aren't FC king off, then let this young master assist you. When Zhu Zhao made his move, 10 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above him. 7th level of the core formation stage. You're overestimating yourself. Duan Lingtian sneered, then he casually swung his arm. He only used the strength of 12 ancient mammoths to easily block Zhu Zhao's attack and slap him down onto the ground. Ah! Zhu Zhao's body that was weak from excessive venting of lust crashed onto the ground, and he emitted a shrill, sad, and miserable cry. Zhu Zhao looked at the old man that followed behind him, then his face revealed a savage expression as he howled, Uncle Ji, I want him dead. The old man looked at Duan Lingtian and his eyes went cold, then he walked out in large strides. Young man, there are some people that you can't afford to offend. Once you do offend them, you have to pay the price. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man extended out his hand to descend upon Duan Lingtian, desiring to grab Duan Lingtian from his seat. Above the old man, 100 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. He was shockingly a 7th level origin core martial artist. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a sneer. He paid no attention to the old man. Instead, he looked at the attendant, who stood far away. Hey, why hasn't our food come yet? Hurry up, we still have matters to attend to after we eat. The surrounding customers in the restaurant were speechless. This violet-clothed young man had actually completely disregarded the old man. Right at the moment they thought Duan Lingtian would be out of luck. Shang Quan, who stood behind Duan Lingtian, moved close to the old man, then he casually slapped out his palm to smash onto the old man's body, blasting the old man that was approaching in full fury. The old man fiercely collided with the wall and then fainted. Above Shang Quan, ancient mammoth silhouettes flashed before instantly vanishing, and no one clearly saw how many there actually were. So formidable, this middle-aged man is at least in existence at the 9th level of the origin core stage. No wonder the violet-clothed young man was so composed. So it turned out that he had such a powerhouse by his side, a powerhouse that could blast away a 7th level origin core martial artist with a single strike. Such ability is something that even an 8th level origin core martial artist is incapable of doing. He's surely in existence at the 9th level of the origin core stage. The surrounding customers couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Customer, your food is here. Meanwhile, the attendant placed steaming hot dishes on Duan Lingtian's table. The attendant slightly trembled with fear, as he never imagined that this generous young man would actually be so terrifying. Even daring to bash the Zhu clan's 3rd young master. Zhu Zhao was lying on the ground, struggling trying to stand up, but the aching pain that came from his body caused it to be difficult for him to do so. Noticing the burning gazes cast at him from the surroundings, embarrassment arose within his heart. When had he ever lost face like this? For a time, his gaze had a sense of coldness and fierceness mixed within when he looked at Duan Lingtian. Kid, you're dead. Lying down as you mouth threatens, aren't you tired? Duan Lingtian calmly glanced at Zhu Zhao, then he paid no further attention to him and put some food onto Li Fei's plate as he said, with a light smile, Little Fei, here, eat more. Li Fei lightly nodded, and her pair of beautiful eyes were tender and soft as water when she looked at Duan Lingtian. Being able to obtain this man's care in this lifetime, she could die without regrets. Shang Quan, sit down and eat together. Duan Lingtian called Shang Quan. Yes, young master, Shang Quan replied respectfully before sitting down. Zhu Zhao was angered to the point that his face flushed when he saw this scene, then he looked at the old man who had fainted by the wall, and he had the desire to faint. Whoever goes to the Zhu clan and helps this young master notify the clan, this 1,000 silver is yours. Zhu Zhao gritted his teeth and withdrew 1,000 silver from his pocket, then he looked at the crowd of customers in the restaurant. Many customers had burning gazes when they heard what he said, but they glanced at Duan Lingtian and gave up any thoughts of helping Zhu Zhao. What a joke! This violet-clothed young man had an existence that might be at the 9th level of the origin core stage by his side. If they were to help Zhu Zhao and make the violet-clothed young man unhappy, they'd surely land themselves in serious trouble. So, even though they coveted the 1,000 silver in Zhu Zhao's hand, they didn't dare make any moves. Although money was good, it wasn't important as one's life. You all are a bunch of poo**********. Zhu Zhao's face was gloomy, and even his breathing became hurried. If you make another sound, that's what will happen to you. Duan Lingtian coldly swept Zhu Zhao with his gaze, then he extended his hand to point at the old man that had fainted by the wall. Zhu Zhao instantly shut his mouth when he heard what Duan Lingtian said, but his eyes still leaked dense hatred as he thought about how he would take revenge on Duan Lingtian once he returned to the Zhu clan. Although no one dared to take Zhu Zhao's money, some of the customers left the restaurant after their meals, so the matter of Zhu Zhao biting off more than he could chew had still spread out. Duan Lingtian had only just finished his meal and was about to leave when he heard hurried footsteps echoing out from outside the restaurant, and a total of 4 people arrived in a threatening manner. Duan Lingtian's brows raised and he glanced at Zhu Zhao. Shang Quan, grab him. Yes, young master. Shang Quan extended his hand and lifted Zhu Zhao up when he heard what Duan Lingtian said. What do you want to do? Zhu Zhao was terrified to the point that his face went pale when he was lifted up by Shang Quan, as he'd experienced the strength of this middle-aged man which seemed to be at the 9th level of the origin core stage earlier. If this middle-aged man wanted to kill him, it would be as simple as killing an ant. Meanwhile, the footsteps grew clearer, and 4 middle-aged men rushed into the restaurant. The middle-aged man in the lead wore blue clothes, and his face was covered in a layer of murderous rage. Zhu Zhao seemed as if he had seen his savior when he saw the blue-clothed middle-aged man, and he hurriedly shouted, "Father, save me." The blue-clothed middle-aged man took a deep breath, then his gaze flashed past the old man that had fainted by the wall and his eyes flashed with a trace of fear. Next he looked at Duan Lingtian. "Little brother, I'm the Zhu clan's second master, Zhu Qi. If my son has offended you, I hope you can forgive him." He was completely clear of the strength of the old man that followed by his son's side, thus he could easily imagine the strength of the middle-aged man by Duan Lingtian's side just from the middle-aged man being able to knock out the old man. 9th level of the origin core stage. Even within their Zhu clan, existences like him were numbered. Of course, he wasn't afraid of a mere 9th level origin core martial artist, because he was a 9th level origin core martial artist as well. The other 3 people that had followed him over were all existences at the 8th level of the origin core stage as well. If they were to go all out, he was certain in being able to kill the middle-aged man. However, what he was truly afraid of now was this violet-clothed young man. As far as he knew, the violet-clothed young man's identity wasn't simple, because he was able to have a 9th level origin core martial artist as a subordinate. So, even though he was enraged, he chose to endure in the end and chose to give in. "Father, what are you doing? I want him dead. I want him dead." Zhu Zhao's face went grim when he heard what Zhu Qi said, and he had a savage appearance as he howled. "Bastard!" Zhu Qi's face sank, and he took a step forward, wanting to slap Zhu Zhao. However, Shang Quan casually raised his hand and moved Zhu Zhao away. Zhu Qi frowned, but his son was in the hands of the middle-aged man, so he didn't dare lose his temper, and he looked at the nearby Duan Lingtian. "Little brother, after I bring my son back to the clan, I'll surely teach him a good lesson. Now, I hope little brother can release my son." Duan Lingtian lazily glanced at Zhu Qi and said indifferently, "I heard your Zhu clan's second elder is a grade 8 weapons craftsman." "Yes." Zhu Qi nodded. "If little brother wants our second elder to refine a grade 8 spirit weapon for you, then I can help introduce little brother. Just think of it as an apology. How about it? You really conceal your intentions deeply." Duan Lingtian deeply glanced at Zhu Qi, as if he could see through Zhu Qi's heart. "Now, you're probably thinking that if I have such a subordinate by my side, my background ought to not be simple. Am I right?" Zhu Qi had an embarrassed expression, as he never imagined that he would be seen through by Duan Lingtian. "Enough. I'll hold your son. So long as you call your Zhu clan's second elder out, I will return your son to you." Duan Lingtian looked at Zhu Qi with a calm gaze. Zhu Qi's pupils constricted, as he had discerned that the violet-clothed young man didn't have any good intentions. "Little brother, may I know why you're looking for my Zhu clan's second elder? It probably isn't so simple as wanting our Zhu clan's second elder to refine a grade 8 spirit weapon, right?" "Grade 8 spirit weapon?" The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a sneer, then he raised his hand. In his hand blazed a strand of raging flames. Do you think I need him to help me refine? The blazing flame on Duan Lingtian's hand created a stir within the restaurant as expected. Oh my god, it's a grade 8 weapon flame. This violet-clothed young man looks to not even be 20, but he's already a grade 8 weapons craftsman. Unbelievable, unbelievable, a grade 8 weapons craftsman that isn't even 20. What natural talent is this? The faces of the customers in the restaurant were filled with shock and they couldn't help but exclaim. Some people seemed to have recalled something and their pupils abruptly constricted. A grade 8 weapon flame can only be condensed by a martial artist at the origin core stage. In other words, this young man is an origin core martial artist. An origin core martial artist that's not even 20. Grade 8 weapons craftsman. The faces of the three middle-aged men that Zuchi brought over went grim. The violet cloth before their eyes was far more terrifying than they originally imagined. Little brother, may I know who you actually are? Zuchi took a deep breath. He could feel his heartbeat growing faster. Now even 20. Origin core stage. Grade 8 weapons craftsman. Only thinking about it caused his scalp to go numb. 233 Chapter 234, Life Wager Agreement. Instantly, Duan Lingtian became the absolute counter of attention within the restaurant. In the current younger generation of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, an origin core martial artist below 20 would only be inferior to the Imperial City's commander of the embroidered uniform guard, Duan Lingtian. However, a grade 8 weapons craftsman below 20 was one of a kind. At least in the long history of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, there has never been such a monstrous existence. Zhu Zhao was stupefied. He never would have imagined that a fellow he had randomly provoked would actually be such an abnormal existence. Even though he was a profligate son of a great clan, he wasn't an idiot. He knew that he had bitten off more than he could chew this time. Moreover, it was of the extremely hard type. It isn't important who I am. Duan Lingtian looked at Zhu Qi with a calm gaze. Just call out your Zhu clan's second elder. Right, remember to tell him that I came to look for him this time only for the sake of holding a life wager with him. I heard that he won 2 life wagers by weapons refinement. I presume he ought to not refuse my challenge. Life wager by weapons refinement? Zhu Qi's pupils constricted and he took a deep breath, then he looked at Duan Lingtian. Little brother, although I don't know who you are, since you were able to break through to the origin core stage and become a grade 8 weapons craftsman at such a young age, I presume your background isn't simple. But I still want to advise you. A life wager isn't a joke. Our Zhu clan's second elder can be said to be second to none amongst the grade 8 weapons craftsmen of Crimson Sky Kingdom. At least 80% of the grade 8 spirit weapons he refines are top quality spirit weapons that provide a 19% amplification. As he spoke up to hear, Zhu Qi looked at Duan Lingtian as if he wanted to make Duan Lingtian aware of the overwhelming odds and retreat. If it was any ordinary grade 8 weapons craftsman, he wouldn't waste his breath like this, but now that Duan Lingtian's background was obviously not simple, he didn't want the life wager by weapons refinement to cause the Zhu clan to offend what seemed to be an extremely formidable power for no reason. Now even the group of customers in the restaurant felt that Duan Lingtian was indulging in a wild fantasy. This young man is too arrogant. Yeah, although he became a grade 8 weapons craftsman at such an age, in terms of experience, how could he possibly compare to the Zhu clan's second elder? Exactly. The Zhu clan's second elder has done life wagers by weapons refinement with others twice, and he hasn't lost once. Young people truly are arrogant. It's like how a newborn calf isn't afraid of tigers. No one amongst the present customers looked favorably at Duan Lingtian. Little brother, you've heard them as well. If you really wager your life with our Zhu clan's second elder, the loser would surely be you. So let's just forget it. Zhu Qi persuaded further when he saw Duan Lingtian remain indifferent. Duan Lingtian swept Zhu Qi with a calm gaze and slowly asked, where's the biggest trade market in your Swallow Mounty County's county city? Although he didn't know why Duan Lingtian asked this, Zhu Qi still said, in the middle area of the county city. Duan Lingtian nodded, then he put down the money for the food, grabbed Li Fei's hand, and glanced at Shang Quan. Shang Quan, let's go to the trade market in the middle area of the city. As he spoke, Duan Lingtian held onto Li Fei's hand and walked out. Shang Quan held Zhu Zhao and followed. Little brother, my son. Zhu Qi's face went slightly grim, and he was somewhat anxious. Provided that I meet your Zhu clan's second elder, provided that he agrees to a life wager by weapons refinement with me, I will return your son to you safe and sound. Duan Lingtian's voice drifted over from afar, causing Zhu Qi's expression to become gloomy. Second Master, what should we do now? One of the middle-aged men behind Zhu Qi asked, somewhat fearfully. Return to the clan. Zhu Qi took in a deep breath and left the restaurant. The group of customers in the restaurant all paid their bills and left, then they headed to the trade market at the middle area of the city because they knew that there would be a spectacle to see in a short while. Within the Zhu clan estate's audience hall, from the Zhu clan's patriarch and below, all the higher-ups of the Zhu clan were gathered together. A Zhu clan elder noticed that Zhu Rong's expression was unsightly and couldn't help but ask, Patriarch, has some important matter occurred that you were so anxious to get us all here? The other elders all looked over at Zhu Rong as well. Zhu Rong's face sank and looked at Zhu Qi, who stood nearby. Second brother, you tell them. For a moment, the gazes of all the Zhu clan elders descended onto Zhu Qi. Zhu Qi took a deep breath then slowly spoke in detail of what he saw and heard in the restaurant earlier, then he added in the end. According to that young man's intention, if second elder isn't willing to agree to his request, he won't release my son. Along with Zhu Qi finishing, the entire audience hall went deathly silent. Less than 20, Origin Core Martial Artist, Grade 8 Weapons Craftsman. The Zhu clan's Grand Elder, an old man over the age of 70, looked at Zhu Qi as he asked, in a deep voice, Zhu Qi, do you know his background? Grand Elder, it's precisely because I don't know his background that I had to think twice. Zhu Qi laughed bitterly. Patriarch Zhu Rong looked at the Zhu clan's second elder, Zhu Liang, that sat beneath the Grand Elder, and asked, Second Elder, what do you think of this matter? Zhu Liang had a calm expression as he indifferently said, it's only just a young and ignorant kid that's relying on his natural talent to put on airs. However, since he's able to possess a cultivation at the Origin Core stage and became a Grade 8 weapons craftsman at such an age, his background ought to not be simple. The Zhu clan's higher-ups present deeply agreed with what Zhu Liang said. I think so too, however, he's already declared that if I want to save my son, then there's no other way. Zhu Qi nodded, and as he finished speaking, he had a bitter smile on his face. A Zhu clan elder who looked like he had a bad temper directly said, HMPH. It's only an ignorant kid. Second elder could just agree to his life wager declaration. Agreeing to his life wager is easy, winning against him in the life wager is easy as well. Zhu Liang's muddy eyes flickered with a trace of a bright light, and he extended his hand to lightly tap the table. However, we still don't know his background now. If we win and he dies, we'll surely offend the power that's standing behind him. The Zhu clan's higher-ups all went silent. This was precisely the most troublesome part. Zhu Rong pondered for a moment, then slowly said, Second Elder, how about this? You agree to the life wager. When you win, reveal your magnanimity and allow him to not fulfill the life wager. In this way, we can both save Zhu Zhao and avoid offending him. This method works. I think so too, Instantly, the group of Zhu clan elders expressed their agreement one by one. Everyone's gazes descended onto the Zhu clan's second elder, Zhu Liang. Zhu Liang's eyes flashed, then he nodded. It's good this way. Once I win against him and allow him to not fulfill the life wager, I can get a good reputation for myself as well. The Swallow Mountain County's county city was undoubtedly bustling with noise and excitement today. Today, a mysterious young man that was below the age of 20 had arrived in the county city. Allegedly, this young man had bashed the Zhu clan's third young master, Zhu Zhao, when he had only just arrived. Not only that, but when the Zhu clan's second master brought along some clan members to get revenge, the mysterious young man even revealed his cultivation and natural talent as a weapons craftsman. An Origin Core stage martial artist and Grade 8 weapons craftsman below the age of 20. After that, this young man even boasted about wanting to hold a life wager with the Zhu clan's second elder, Zhu Liang, a life wager by weapons refinement. Moreover, he'd chosen the most bustling trade market in the center of the city to hold the life wager. For some time, the entire county city was stirred. The trade market at the center of the city already had streams of people surging about, and now it was difficult to even take a single step. The county governor's estate. A dignified middle-aged man sat within the pergola in the front courtyard and savored fragrant tea with a pleased expression. Suddenly, a house servant ran before the dignified middle-aged man in a flurried manner. The dignified middle-aged man was precisely the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, Pei Yuan, and his brows raised as he asked, in a deep voice, what are you so flurried about? County governor, a young man has come to our county city, and he wants to hold a life wager by weapons refinement with the Zhu clan's second elder. Under the detailed narration of the house servant, Pei Yuan found out of the ins and outs of the matter, and the corners of his mouth curved lightly. An origin core martial artist below the age of 20. Grade 8 weapons craftsman. Pei Yuan abruptly stood up, and his eyes lit up. Interesting, interesting. Come with me to join in the excitement. Alchemist's Guild. Since becoming a grade 7 alchemist 3 years ago and leaving Aurora City, Sumo had returned to the county city's Alchemists Guild and even became the vice guild master of the Alchemists Guild. What? An origin core martial artist below the age of 20? Grade 8 weapons craftsman. After Sumo heard of the rumors that gave rise to much discussion in the city, he was slightly surprised. Could it be that there's an existence within the Crimson Sky Kingdom's younger generation that can compare with that little freak? Sumo muttered. In this lifetime, he would never forget that violet-clothed youth from that year. That year, it was precisely because of that youth that he was able to smoothly become a grade 7 alchemist and was able to leave that remote Aurora City and return to the bustling county city. Later on, even though he was in the county city, he'd heard many rumors of that youth from all those years ago. The #1 genius in Paladin Academy. The Duan clan's direct descendant disciple. The embroidered uniform guards commander. Now the little fellow from all those years ago has become the publicly acknowledged peerless genius with the best natural talent in the Crimson Sky Kingdom's younger generation. I'll go join in the excitement as well. I want to see who exactly is so monstrous as to be almost comparable to that kid, Duan Lingtian. The corners of Sumo's mouth held a smile, and he directly left the Alchemists Guild. The trade market at the center of the city. A special sign hung outside a luxurious building. The sign of the Violet Tulip Trading Company. At the highest point of the building was a pavilion. Right now, a dignified, graceful, and beautiful woman sat there within the pavilion and looked from afar at the area of the trade market that was emptied. A violet-clothed young man stood there with a beautiful girl. Behind the two, a middle-aged man held a pale-faced young man like he was holding a chick. I never imagined that he would cause such a stir the moment he arrived. At an unknown time, a middle-aged man with extraordinary bearings and a firm expression arrived beside the beautiful woman and lightly smiled. 234 Chapter 235, The Wager Begins. Duan Lingtian held Li Fei's hand, and at this moment, he could clearly feel the fluctuation in Li Fei's mood. Don't worry, I'll surely take revenge for Grandpa. Duan Lingtian gave Li Fei a gaze that said, don't worry. I believe you. Li Fei lightly nodded. She trusted this man without condition. Her grandpa had died, and in the world, this man was her biggest reliance. In the future, she would only live for this man. They're here. Suddenly seeming to have noticed something, Duan Lingtian's brows raised and he looked into the distance. The dense crowd seemed as if they had discussed it earlier as they moved to open up a path. It's the Zhu clan's second elder. The Zhu clan's second master has come. The Zhu clan's patriarch, Grand Elder, and Third Elder have come as well. Oh my god, the Zhu clan's higher-ups have practically all swarmed out. The crowd surged and was incomparably clamorous. And on the path that the crowd opened up, a group of people approached in a formidable array. Among these people, Duan Lingtian only recognized Zhu Qi, the Zhu clan's second master. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian and the Zhu clan's group confronted each other in the emptied area. Duan Lingtian wasn't afraid in the slightest when faced with the group of existences at the nascent soul stage and origin core stage. His gaze was calm, it was as if he was looking at a group of ordinary people. Moreover, while Duan Lingtian sized up the group of Zhu clan members, the Zhu clan members were sizing him up as well. Their first thought was surprise. Such a young man would definitely not be above 20, but he had actually achieved such shocking achievements. It was truly shocking. The Zhu Qi took a step forward and looked at Duan Lingtian, then he said, in a deep voice, "Little brother, my Zhu clan's second elder has arrived. Now, can you release my son?" Which one is the Zhu clan's second elder? Duan Lingtian's gaze flashed past the group of people behind Zhu Qi. I'm the Zhu clan's second elder, Zhu Liang. An old man behind Zhu Qi took a step forward and stood shoulder to shoulder with Zhu Qi. He looked at Duan Lingtian with a gaze that had a sense of disdain mixed within. Kid, when it's possible to let someone off, one should spare them. When it's possible to let someone off, one should spare them. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but burst out laughing when he heard what Zhu Liang said. Right when Zhu Liang frowned, Duan Lingtian's laughter stopped abruptly, and his cold and indifferent gaze descended onto Zhu Liang. Zhu clan's second elder, I won't waste time. Now, let's set a life wager agreement and decide the outcome in a single round. Whoever refines the grade 8 spirit weapon with the lowest quality dies. Do you dare? Duan Lingtian looked at Zhu Liang and a smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. HMPH. Zhu Liang's voice was cold like ice. Why not? I'll agree to your life wager right now. If he didn't dare, he wouldn't have appeared here right now. Duan Lingtian nodded. Good, straightforward enough. Shang Quan, let him go. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, Shang Quan tossed out Zhu Zhao, who was in his hand, directly at Zhu Qi as if he was throwing out trash. Zhu Qi glanced angrily at Shang Quan, then he extended his hand to catch his son. Father. Zhu Zhao had a face full of shame. Zhu Qi grunted coldly. Stand at the back, I'll deal with you when we get back. At this moment, the surrounding crowd went silent, and everyone stared fixedly at the violet-clothed young man and green-clothed old man. They held their breaths, as they knew that the most exciting moment was about to arrive. Zhu Liang looked at Duan Lingtian and said, with a calm voice that had a slight condescending tone mixed within, you're the junior, so you can put forth the requirements. What weapon will we refine? Zhu Liang's current tone was like a senior teaching a junior a lesson. The crowd surged with excitement. As expected of the Zhu clan's second elder, the publicly acknowledged #1 grade 8 weapons craftsman in our Swallow Mountain County. His bearing is extraordinary. Yeah, although this young man's natural talent in weapons refinement can be called monstrous, in terms of experience, it's surely impossible to compare to the Zhu clan's second elder. Him wagering his life by weapons refinement with the Zhu clan's second elder is definitely courting death. A newborn calf isn't afraid of a tiger. Today, this weapons refining genius will probably die here. No one within the surrounding crowd looked favorably upon Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian was naturally able to hear the discussion of the crowd. A trace of worry appeared on Li Fei's face, and her hand gripped Duan Lingtian's hand slightly tighter. Don't worry. Duan Lingtian lightly kneaded Li Fei's palm, and after he let go of her hand, he took a step forward and looked at Zhu Liang. I don't mind, then let's refine a sword. Sword. A trace of a smile appeared on the corners of Zhu Liang's mouth. In his lifetime, the weapon he refined the most was the sword. If it was refining a spirit sword, he was at least 90% confident that he would be able to refine a grade 8 spirit sword that provided an amplification of 19%. Then let's begin. Zhu Liang's gaze focused, then he withdrew a pile of materials from his spatial ring with a wave of his hand and started refining the grade 8 spirit sword. Zhu Liang's technique was extremely complex and extremely practiced, causing the surrounding spectators to burst out with astonishment. The Zhu clan's second elder's technique is too swift, this is a true weapons craftsman. In next to no time, the surrounding spectators looked at Duan Lingtian, but they quickly noticed that Duan Lingtian stood there on the spot, without the slightest intention to start refining. Could it be that he's giving up like that? Isn't this deliberately courting death? Many people were speechless. Time flew by and 2 hours quickly passed by. The pile of materials on the weapon flame on Zhu Liang's hand had now completely merged together and shaped into the form of a sword. According to this speed, he would surely complete the refinement of the grade 8 spirit sword after an hour. Duan Lingtian still hadn't made a move. In a restaurant near the place the life wager was being held, within 2 rooms that neighbored to each other, 2 pairs of eyes descended onto Duan Lingtian. Could it be that this young man has given up? Within one of the rooms, the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, Pei Yuan, frowned and had a dumbfounded expression. Within the other room, Sumo watched this scene, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. This kid looks to be very confident. I really never expected that besides being an alchemist, he was also a weapons craftsman. When Sumo had just arrived in the room, he noticed that the young man that was intending to wager his life with the Zhu clan's second elder was actually the former youth, Duan Lingtian. After he found out about this fact, his heart was filled with shock. In next to no time, however, he came to an understanding. As far as he was concerned, Duan Lingtian was a little freak, and any wonder appearing on Duan Lingtian wasn't strange. I wonder how this Zhu clan's second elder offended this little freak. I really want to see how he winds up the matter. The corners of Sumo's mouth had a smile, as he had extremely high confidence towards Duan Lingtian. Although he knew as well that the Zhu clan's second elder, Zhu Liang, could refine spirit weapons that provided a 19% amplification. When he thought about how Duan Lingtian had refined that medicinal pill with a purity of over 90% that day, he was once again filled with confidence towards Duan Lingtian. Moreover, he knew that since Duan Lingtian dared to so arrogantly wager his life with the Zhu clan's second elder, he'd surely be confident. Duan Lingtian wasn't a rash person. Within the pavilion atop the luxurious building right opposite the restaurant. Why do you think he hasn't started refining? A middle-aged man with an imposing appearance lightly smiled as he asked the beautiful woman beside him, with a voice that was gentle like water. The beautiful woman's beautiful, watery eyes condensed strands of complicated lights as she gathered her sight onto the violet-clothed young man. Maybe he doesn't need that much time to refine a grade 8 spirit weapon. Don't forget, he's Duan Lingtian. Yeah, he's Duan Lingtian. The middle-aged man lightly nodded and spoke with a tone that had an emotional sigh mixed within. When you mentioned him to me 3 years ago, I still slightly disagreed. Even to the extent that after he refused your good intentions, he still felt he didn't know what was good for him. Who would have known? The beautiful woman continued the discussion. Who would have known that in a short 3 years' time, he would become renowned throughout the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom? Now it seems that it's not only our Violet Tulip Trading Company, but even the Crimson Sky Kingdom can't hold him. Then let's witness him create a miracle once again. The middle-aged man lightly smiled as he nodded, and his gaze then descended onto the violet-clothed young man. The group of Zhu clan members couldn't help but reveal disdain on their faces when they saw that Duan Lingtian still hadn't made a move. He actually hasn't started refining the grade 8 spirit weapon. Could it be that he intends to admit defeat? A Zhu clan elder sneered. Probably not. The Zhu clan's patriarch, Zhu Rong, shook his head. Since he initiated the life wager, it's impossible for him to admit defeat. I have this feeling, was it bad for us to have asked the second elder to agree to this life wager so hastily? As he finished speaking, Zhu Rong frowned. He didn't know why, but when he gazed at the violet-clothed young man with a carefree and unhurried expression, he didn't feel confident in his heart. Patriarch, could it be that you think he can defeat the second elder? Another Zhu clan elder shook his head with a face full of doubt. Uncle, don't worry, second elder is the publicly acknowledged #1 grade 8 weapons craftsman in our Swallow Mountain County. In the Swallow Mountain County, a grade 8 weapons craftsman that is capable of refining a spirit weapon that provides a 19% amplification has never been heard of. Zhu Zhao had recovered now, and he looked at Duan Lingtian with an incomparably gloomy gaze. This time, I want to see how he dies. Zhu Qi glanced at his son and then said indifferently, then I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. The clan has already made a decision. Even if this young man loses to the second elder might not take his life. Why? Zhu Zhao was stupefied and had an unwilling expression. Zhu Rong added, Zhao, the background of this young man ought to not be simple. For the sake of not bringing unnecessary trouble to the clan, we can only do this. Zhu Zhao's face sank. Uncle, what if he doesn't have any background? Zhu Rong's eyes squinted and had an awe-inspiring killing intent. If we can confirm that he doesn't have any background, then he naturally won't be able to escape death once he loses. I and second elder have discussed it. After finishing the refinement, the second elder will try to find out about his background. If he really doesn't have any background, the second elder won't let him off. 235 Chapter 236, Half an Hour. The pile of merged materials in Zhu Liang's hand that were forming the shape of the sword earlier had now started condensing into the rough outline of a sword. And it had already been half an hour from the time the materials started forming the shape of a sword until now. And right when the surrounding spectators all thought that Duan Lingtian intended to give up, Duan Lingtian finally moved. Hiss! A grade 8 weapon flame lit ablaze on Duan Lingtian's hand, causing many people's gazes to abruptly light up. Although they'd heard that Duan Lingtian was a grade 8 weapons craftsman earlier, the hearts of many still shook when they saw Duan Lingtian condense a grade 8 weapon flame. Condensing a grade 8 weapon flame at an age that's below 20, utterly monstrous. The young man is starting to refine as well. In next to no time, the surrounding spectators' gazes all moved onto Duan Lingtian. When they saw the technique Duan Lingtian revealed when he started refining, the surrounding spectators were stupefied. Isn't that really too fast? I'm completely unable to see his movements clearly. I thought that the speed of the Zhu clan's second elder was considered to be fast, but I never imagined that this young man's speed would be even faster. This young man's level of skill in his technique even surpasses the Zhu clan's second elder. However, the speed of technique doesn't mean that he's capable of refining a spirit weapon with higher quality. As the saying goes, slow work yields fine products. The speed at which Duan Lingtian refined the grade 8 spirit weapon could be said to be swift like lightning. Profound weapons refinement techniques flowed freely in his hands without hesitation, with a speed that far surpassed Zhu Liang. After 20 minutes passed, all of the materials in Duan Lingtian's hands merged to start forming the shape of a sword. Oh my god, the step which took the Zhu clan's second elder 2 hours to complete was completed by him in 20 minutes. Abnormal. Too abnormal. Does he think that a spirit weapon refined at such a speed would really be a match for the spirit weapon refined by the Zhu clan's second elder? It might be slightly dangerous. The surrounding spectators were dumbstruck as they saw the forming shape of a sword above the weapon flames on Duan Lingtian's hand. After another 10 minutes, sword complete, Duan Lingtian and Zhu Liang stopped at almost the exact same time, and on each of their hands was a sword respectively. A grade 8 spirit sword. The grade 8 spirit sword in Duan Lingtian's hand assumed a jade green color. These materials were those that Duan Lingtian had bought that time when he refined the embroidered spring swords, and after completing the refinement of the 13 swords, the remaining materials had now come to use. The grade 8 spirit sword in Zhu Liang's hand assumed an emerald color and matched well with his green clothes when grasped in his hand. Zhu Liang was slightly surprised when he saw the grade 8 spirit sword Duan Lingtian had finished refining. He originally thought that with Duan Lingtian's age, it would at least require 3 to 4 hours for him to refine a grade 8 spirit sword. But never had he imagined that Duan Lingtian's speed could follow his. When Zhu Liang started refining, he put his heart and soul into it and knew nothing of what happened in the outside world while he was refining the spirit sword. In next to no time, the discussions that entered into his ears caused his face to go grim. Half an hour. Zhu Liang's gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian. Only now did he realize that Duan Lingtian had only taken half an hour to refine the grade 8 spirit sword. Whereas he spent 3 hours. Duan Lingtian had only started refining half an hour ago. This caused him to be extremely shocked. If he was given half an hour, he wouldn't be capable of refining a grade 8 spirit weapon within that time even if his life depended upon it. On the other hand, 1 hour wouldn't be a problem. However, the grade 8 spirit weapon that was refined within an hour would be a substandard product that was not presentable. No wonder you're so arrogant. So it turned out to be that you know such a profound weapons refinement technique. However, do you really think a grade 8 spirit sword you spent half an hour to refine can compare to the spirit weapon I painstakingly refined for 3 hours? Zhu Liang looked at Duan Lingtian in disdain. He was still extremely satisfied with the grade 8 spirit weapon in his hand. It was capable of providing a 19% amplification in strength and had completely expressed his level of skill. Won't you only know if it can compare to the grade 8 spirit weapon you refined after we test it? Duan Lingtian had a carefree expression, and in terms of imposing manner, he wasn't disadvantaged in the slightest. Then I'll be waiting to see. However, before this, I still want to ask you. Why do you want to have a life wager by weapons refinement with me? Zhu Liang glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian as he probed. Before the results were out, he had to investigate Duan Lingtian's identity. If Duan Lingtian's identity wasn't simple, then even if he won, he could only pretend to be magnanimous and spare Duan Lingtian's life. If Duan Lingtian didn't have any background, then he would surely make Duan Lingtian die a graveless death. One had to pay a price for provoking him. You really want to know? Duan Lingtian noticed Zhu Liang's gaze and naturally guessed his intentions. This caused a smile to appear on the corners of his mouth. Zhu Liang nodded. Okay, then I'll tell you. What Duan Lingtian said caused Zhu Liang's gaze to light up. Even the group of Zhu clan members all gathered their concentration and looked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian looked at Zhu Liang and said indifferently, you ought to still remember that old man that had a life wager by weapons refinement with you 1 year ago, right? He was my grandfather. Zhu Liang was stunned, then he started laughing. That person from 1 year ago. So that old goat that overestimated himself and sought me out to have a life wager was your grandfather. Zhu Liang's gaze flickered, and he was assured in his heart. In other words, the young man before him ought to have no background and only had great natural talent. He knew of the background of the person from 1 year ago, an elder of a small clan in a small city. To the Zhu clan, it was nothing. The gazes of the Zhu clan members all lit up. Zan, second elder, can help you take your revenge. The Zhu clan's patriarch, Zhu Rong, looked at Zhu Zhao, and a smile appeared on his face. Zhu Zhao had a pleasantly surprised expression. I told you, he surely had no background, as expected. So it turned out that the old goat that came to die 1 year ago was his grandfather. This time, let's allow this grandfather and grandson pair to be companions in hell. In next to no time, Zhu Zhao's gaze descended onto the faraway Li Fei. As far as he was concerned, once this violet-clothed youth died, wouldn't it be extremely easy for him to obtain this beauty that was like a celestial maiden if he wanted her? For a moment, Zhu Zhao's gaze revealed a sense of lust. Duan Lingtian noticed Zhu Zhao's gaze at the first possible moment. His face sank and his eyes held an awe-inspiring killing intent as a response. This Zhu Zhao had actually dared to use this sort of gaze to be disrespectful to his little Fei. As far as Duan Lingtian was concerned, Zhu Zhao was already a dead man. Kid, looks like you'll surely die today. Zhu Liang looked at Duan Lingtian as if he'd already won, and in his heart, he indeed thought he'd won. Even though Duan Lingtian's refinement technique was profound, as far as he was concerned, how could a spirit weapon that was refined within half an hour compare to the spirit weapon he refined for 3 hours? Moreover, in his opinion, this violet-clothed youth was only the grandson of a defeated opponent and amounted to nothing. Second Elder Zhu, don't speak so fast all the time. Duan Lingtian smiled indifferently as if he didn't take what Zhu Liang had said to heart in the slightest. What, could it be you really think the spirit sword you spent half an hour to refine is able to compete with the grade 8 spirit weapon I refined? Let me tell you, this grade 8 spirit sword I refined is able to amplify one's strength by 19%. Zhu Liang laughed in ridicule and swept Duan Lingtian with a gaze of contempt. He didn't intentionally suppress his voice, and he even condensed his origin energy to spread it out far away. Instantly, the surrounding crowd stirred once again. 19%. Looks like the Zhu clan's second elder completely expressed his level of skill this time. This young man's luck is really bad. A grade 8 spirit weapon that provides a 19% amplification. In the Swallow Mountain County, besides the Zhu clan's second elder, I've never heard of any grade 8 weapons craftsman capable of refining such a spirit weapon. Unfortunately, a young man with such monstrous natural talent is bound to lose his life here today. Zhu Liang enjoyed listening to the discussions of the crowd. The Zhu clan members all revealed smiles on their faces. As far as they were concerned, this violet-clothed youth that didn't know his limitations would lose for sure. And die for sure. Within the room in the restaurant. A grade 8 spirit sword that was refined within half an hour. The Swallow Mountain County's county governor, Pei Yuan, shook his head, as he didn't look favorably upon the violet-clothed youth. In the neighboring room, Su Mo slightly frowned. This kid, why didn't he refine a bit more seriously? Can this grade 8 spirit weapon that was refined in half an hour be of use? Even if Sumo had confidence in Duan Lingtian, now he couldn't help but feel his confidence waver. After all, a grade 8 spirit weapon that was refined within half an hour was truly something unbelievable. It was not likely that the quality of a spirit weapon that was refined within such a short amount of time could be good. However, when he noticed Duan Lingtian's carefree expression that was there from the beginning till the end, he was assured in his heart. Perhaps this kid will give me another pleasant surprise. Otherwise, I can only enlighten that Zhu clan member and let him know of the kid's identity. Sumo was confident that so long as Duan Lingtian's identity was exposed, even if the Zhu clan was even braver, they would still not dare touch Duan Lingtian. At least they wouldn't dare touch Duan Lingtian in public. On the pavilion on the luxurious building. We will know the final result very soon. The beautiful woman lightly smiled as if she was filled with confidence towards the violet-clothed youth in the distance. Can a grade 8 spirit sword that was refined within half an hour possibly surpass the grade 8 spirit sword that provides a 19% amplification that Zhu Liang refined? The middle-aged man at the side was slightly hesitant as he spoke. You'll know if it's possible soon, the beautiful woman said. You're right, the middle-aged man lightly nodded. Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto Zhu Liang's figure. Second Elder Zhu, how are we testing the grade 8 spirit swords we've refined? Zhu Liang grunted coldly. Let's test each other's spirit swords ourselves. Of course, if we doubt the judgment of the other, we can find another to test it. Now, there's so many people in the surrounding, is there a need to fear there being no one to test it? Alright, then let's test each other's spirit swords first. Duan Lingtian nodded, as he didn't have any objections, then he casually tossed the grade 8 spirit sword in his hand to Zhu Liang. Zhu Liang also tossed the grade 8 spirit sword in his hand to Duan Lingtian. 236 Chapter 237, Don't Spare a Soul. Although there were many people spectating, when they saw Duan Lingtian and Zhu Liang exchange the grade 8 spirit swords they had refined, they all gathered their attention and stared fixedly. They knew that the results of today's life wager was about to be revealed. Duan Lingtian's origin energy fused with the grade 8 spirit sword in his hand, and instantly, ancient mammoth silhouettes flashed above him one by one. Right, it amplifies strength by 19%. Duan Lingtian nodded to Zhu Liang with a calm gaze. He had to admit in his heart, this Zhu Liang was indeed skilled. However, Zhu Liang could only blame his own misfortune. After all, Duan Lingtian's refinement technique and experience all came from the memories of rebirth Martial Emperor, and even in the entire Cloud Continent, it was a top-notch technique. This Zhu Liang wasn't just miles apart from him. However, he still held back when he refined the spirit sword this time. As far as he was concerned, it was sufficient as long as he firmly won against Zhu Liang. There was no need to show off too much of his ability. Zhu Liang, who was just about to test the grade 8 spirit sword that Duan Lingtian refined, saw Duan Lingtian's current composed expression, and his heart couldn't help but jerk. Could it be that this kid really was confident in defeating him? No, impossible. Zhu Liang ceaselessly consoled himself in his heart as he took a deep breath and started to test the sword. Zhu Liang was a first-level nascent soul martial artist, so without a spirit weapon, he was capable of exerting the strength of 200 ancient mammoths. Now he used the grade 8 spirit sword that Duan Lingtian refined. Whoosh! For a moment, 240 ancient mammoths appeared above him. 20%. No, impossible, impossible. Zhu Liang's expression finally went pale, and his eyes sprung wide open like saucers as he ceaselessly shook his head, unwilling to believe this to be real. How could this be possible? The grade 8 spirit weapon he refined that amplified strength by 19% could be considered a top-quality grade 8 spirit weapon. And this grade 8 spirit weapon that amplified strength by 20% could already be considered the top quality amongst top-quality spirit weapons. Such a spirit weapon was refined by a young man that's not even 20. He didn't dare believe, and he was unwilling to believe that it was true. At this moment, the smiles of the Zhu clan members all froze. How could this be possible? This young man is capable of refining a grade 8 spirit sword that provides a 20% amplification. The Zhu clan's grand elder's pupils constricted and his face went gloomy. The Zhu clan's patriarch Zhu Rong, Zhu Qi, and the other Zhu clan elders were now completely muddled and didn't dare believe that all this was true. How could this be possible? How could this be possible? Zhu Zhao's face went gloomy when he saw this scene, and his voice had traces of unwillingness mixed within. A grade 8 spirit sword that provides a 20% amplification. The Swallow Mountain County's county governor, Pei Yuan, squinted his eyes and had a face full of disbelief. A grade 8 spirit sword that was refined in half an hour was capable of 20% strength amplification. Who actually was this violet-clothed youth? It was simply unbelievable. In contrast, Sumo laughed heartily in the neighboring room. This kid didn't disappoint me in the end. Refining a grade 8 spirit sword that can amplify strength by 20% in half an hour, such natural talent in weapons refinement is virtually heaven-defying. Not only Pei Yuan and Sumo, even the husband and wife pair within the pavilion on the luxurious building were amazed. Although they were filled with confidence towards Duan Lingtian since the beginning, when they saw this scene with their own two eyes, they couldn't help but be moved. Second Elder Zhu, what do you think now? Duan Lingtian looked at Zhu Liang, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. Li Fei stood at the back and now had an excited expression. Her man had taken revenge for her grandfather. Strands of warmth arose within her heart. However, Zhu Liang seemed as if he didn't hear what Duan Lingtian said, and he ceaselessly shook his head. Impossible, it's impossible. Obviously, he hadn't recovered from the blow he received yet. The surrounding crowd of spectators had now recovered from their shock, and without exception, they all had faces full of astonishment. FK, a grade 8 spirit sword that provides a 20% amplification. This violet-clothed youth is simply abnormal. He's not only abnormal, he's virtually an abnormality amongst abnormal people, a super abnormal person. Looks like the title of #1 grade 8 weapons craftsman in Swallow Mountain County will become his. Truly unbelievable. Is he really not even 20 yet? Of course, look at his appearance, he's obviously a young man who has just lost his immaturity. Everyone was shocked, as the scene before their eyes was completely different from the scene in their expectations. This violet-clothed youth had actually won against the Zhou clan's second elder in a life wager by weapons refinement. Moreover, he had defeated the Zhou clan's second elder with a grade 8 spirit sword that he had refined in half an hour. Virtually heaven-defying. Meanwhile, the Zhou clan's second elder, Zhu Liang, had slowly recovered from his shock. However, his face had a sense of dread mixed within. No, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Zhu Liang's heart trembled, and he turned and flew off while holding the grade 8 spirit sword that Duan Lingtian refined. Then he gathered with the group of Zhou clan members. This scene was something Duan Lingtian had never expected. Duan Lingtian's face sank, and his eyes emitted an awe-inspiring killing intent. Second Elder Zhu, are you thinking of going back on your word? For a time, the surrounding crowd emitted a burst of sighs. The dignified second elder of the Zhou clan actually went back on his word. He was willing to gamble but unwilling to accept defeat. Zhu Liang's expression was extremely unsightly, but he felt guilty in his heart and didn't dare make a sound. Meanwhile, the Zhou clan's patriarch, Zhu Rong, stood out and looked at Duan Lingtian. Young man, needless to say, your weapons refinement technique is admirable. However, second elder is significant to our Zhou clan, so no matter what, our Zhou clan can't lose him. So, for the life wager today, my Zhou clan is willing to exchange other things for the second elder's life. Other things? Duan Lingtian's gaze went cold and he sneered. Sorry, I really have no need for other things. I came to have a life wager with your Zhou clan's second elder precisely for his life. Then regretfully, I'm unable to comply. Zhu Rong's face sank. Zhu Liang. Duan Lingtian's cold and indifferent gaze descended onto Zhu Liang. Are you sure you want to go back on your word? Are you sure you want to bring the entire Zhou clan down with you just for the sake of your life? I'll give you a chance, take your own life right now, otherwise, I'll annihilate your Zhou clan. Duan Lingtian's voice was filled with infinite icy coldness. Wanting to go back on your word in front of him? Was that possible? Nonsense. Zhu Qi sneered, then he looked at Duan Lingtian with a face full of disdain. Kid, my big brother offered you other compensation. That's thinking highly of you. However, since you're so arrogant, then you'll get nothing. If you want to keep your life, then FK off now. Is that so? Cold lights shot out in all directions from Duan Lingtian's eyes, and the flames of fury in his heart had burned to the limit. He was hardly ever so angry. But today, he was completely enraged. Pei Yuan within the restaurant's room frowned and slightly disdained the Zhou clan's second elder for going back on his word. However, he didn't know this violet-clothed youth, and thus didn't plan on standing up for him. The face of Sumo in the neighboring room sank, and he directly leapt out of the window to get down from the restaurant. Then he walked in large strides towards Duan Lingtian. He wanted to let the Zhou clan members know of Duan Lingtian's identity. As far as he was concerned, this Zhou clan actually daring to go back on their word before the commander of the embroidered uniform guard, Duan Lingtian, was simply courting death. In the pavilion, look, the Zhou clan is planning on relying on their strength to bully people. The beautiful woman's gaze had a sense of coldness within. Let's go over. The middle-aged man brought along the beautiful woman as he descended from the pavilion and walked towards Duan Lingtian as well. The surrounding crowd's sighing had never stooped. The Zhou clan is too shameless. Yeah, when this young man's grandfather wagered his life with Zhu Liang last year, Zhu Liang directly took his life after winning. Now that it's Zhu Liang's turn, he goes back on his word. Too shameless. I've decided not to spend money in the businesses under the Zhou clan in the future, even if it's just a copper coin. Me too, even if I throw my money in the ditch, I still won't let the Zhou clan earn it. A man is nothing without his word, and the Zhou clan has indeed gone too far this time. The Zhou clan's actions now had caused public outrage. 2 Zhou clan members, from Patriarch Zhu Rong to the elders, they all had unsightly expressions. Kid, I'll give you the time of 5 breaths to disappear before my eyes. Otherwise, not only you, even the other 2 people by your side will undoubtedly die. Zhu Rong's eyes went cold as he looked at Duan Lingtian and threatened. Ha 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 ha. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but burst out laughing as if he had heard an excellent joke when he heard what Zhu Rong said. Good, what a good Zhou clan. Duan Lingtian's eyes were cold and indifferent like ice. His voice seemed as if it came from the depths of hell and was filled with gloominess. Shang Quan, besides Zhu Liang, don't spare a soul. Killing intent that pierced the skies arose from Duan Lingtian's body, and his voice was cold and indifferent. At this moment, Duan Lingtian seemed to have transformed into a devil god, a bloodthirsty devil god. Right when everyone was stupefied because of what Duan Lingtian said. Yes, young master. Shang Quan made his move. Shang Quan's figure flashed out, and only a few people present could catch sight of him. Whoosh, 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 continuous sword howls seemed to echo out at the same time, causing the surrounding crowd of spectators to feel a chill run down their spines. When they recovered from their shock, they instead noticed that besides Zhu Liang, who still stood there trembling with a ghastly pale face, all of the Zhu clan members were on the ground. Blood flowed like a river. And a figure that was swift like a ghost returned to Duan Lingtian's side as well. Drops of blood dropped down from the 3-foot-long blade in his hand, as if transforming into red roses that were incomparably dazzling to the eye. At this moment, the surroundings were deathly silent. A few nascent soul existences were included amongst the Zhu clan members that were on the ground. Besides Zhu Zhao, the remaining people were all existences at the 9th level of the origin core stage. However, in the blink of an eye, they were all gone. Besides the creator of the incident, the Zhu clan's second elder, Zhu Liang, all the Zhu clan members present were dead. 237 Chapter 238, Identity Exposed. Su Mo's body stiffened as he looked at the scene before him in a daze, and he was completely dumbfounded. That Zhu clan's grand elder, who was among the Zhu clan members that had lost their lives, was in existence at the 3rd level of the nascent soul stage. However, just like everyone else, he still wasn't able to react before he was struck down. Dead without a doubt, his gaze flickered with a slightly complicated sheen as he looked over at the violet-clothed young man with a carefree expression, and his heart trembled. Looks like I got worried for nothing. There's actually such a terrifying powerhouse by this kid's side. The pair of husband and wife that had rushed over at almost the same time as Su Mo froze on the spot. Yan, that person by Duan Lingtian's side, the dignified and graceful beautiful woman said, and her beautiful face that had a carefree expression since the beginning until now had a trace of surprise. I'm far inferior to him. The middle-aged man by the beautiful woman's side had a complicated expression as he sighed. The beautiful woman's eyes squinted when she heard what he said, and she completely lost her composure. She was extremely clear that her husband was in existence at the half-step void stage. She knew that someone who even her husband felt himself to be inferior to would surely be in existence at the void-prying stage without a doubt. Void-prying stage. In the restaurant's room, the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, Pei Yuan's pupils constricted, and because of holding on too forcefully, the teacup within his hand transformed into a pile of fragments that scattered down onto the ground. However, he seemed to not notice in the slightest. Who the heck is this violet-clothed young man? Pei Yuan's heart trembled, and he got up and left. No matter who the violet-clothed young man was, the appearance of a void-prying stage powerhouse was already worthy of him, the county governor of Swallow Mountain County, to personally make an appearance. Duan Lingtian walked step by step towards Zhu Liang. Every step he took seemed to transform in an enormous hammer that fiercely smashed onto Zhu Liang's chest, causing Zhu Liang's face to flush. Extremely deep despair arose within Zhu Liang's heart as he gazed at the violet-clothed young man before him. He never imagined that the subordinate by this violet-clothed young man's side would be so terrifying. In the blink of an eye, before he could even react to it, the young man's subordinate had killed the entire group of Zhu clan members that were present. Amongst them, there was no lack of existences stronger than him. Why did you kill them? Zhu Liang's voice lightly trembled, and he looked at Duan Lingtian with an enraged expression. Why did I kill them? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but laugh. Then he looked at Zhu Liang with a calm expression. I gave you a chance earlier, right? They died because they were implicated by you. Zhu Liang's figure trembled. Only now did he realize the clear words of this violet-clothed young man from before. Are you sure you want to go back on your word? Are you sure you want to bring the entire Zhu clan down with you just for the sake of your life? I'll give you a chance, take your own life right now, otherwise, I'll annihilate your Zhu clan. So it turned out that the violet-clothed young man wasn't deliberately mystifying himself when he said this, the young man wasn't talking nonsense. He really had the ability. Instantly, Zhu Liang's heart was filled with a bellyful of regret. It was he who'd caused the deaths of the group of Zhu clan members. Dying earlier or later was still death, but now, even though he could live on for a while longer, he had caused the Zhu clan to pay an extremely enormous price. You, who the heck are you? Zhu Liang looked at Duan Lingtian with a face full of unwillingness. When Zhu Liang finished speaking, the surrounding crowd of spectators turned their gazes onto Duan Lingtian. They were similarly curious about who the heck was this young man who had a subordinate that possessed such shocking strength was. Second Elder Zhu, you don't even know who he is, and you actually dared go back on your word in front of him. Right at this moment, a voice abruptly sounded, and an aged old man moved back and forth through the crowd towards them. It was as if the old man had transformed into a slippery loach that no one was able to stop. In the blink of an eye, the old man arrived at Duan Lingtian's side. Geezer. Earlier when he heard the voice, Duan Lingtian felt it to be slightly familiar, and now when he saw the old man appear, Duan Lingtian's gaze abruptly shone and a wide grin hung on his face. He never would have imagined that he would be able to see an old friend when he came to County City. The old man before him was no one else but precisely the former Aurora City's Alchemist Guild's guild master, Sumo, who he had befriended in Aurora City. At that time, Sumo had become a grade 7 alchemist under his guidance and then left Aurora City. Sumo's appearance caused quite a large stir. I recognize him, he's Vice Guild Master Su of our County City's Alchemist Guild. It's really Vice Guild Master Su. This young man seems to be well acquainted with Vice Guild Master Su and directly called him, Geezer. Looks like the identity of this young man really isn't simple. The surrounding crowd of spectators all had expressions of surprise when they saw the scene before them. Sumo, a grade 7 alchemist and the Vice Guild Master of the County City's Alchemist Guild. His status within the county city was extremely special, and even the Swallow Mountain County's county governor would have to be respectful when meeting him. Zhu Liang's face went grim. It looked like his guess wasn't wrong, this violet-clothed young man's identity was indeed not simple. Sumo, your movements really are fast. Right at this moment, a pair of husband and wife that were like a match made in heaven walked over in large strides, and everywhere they passed, the crowd would move aside. It's the Swallow Mountain County's Violet Tulip Trading Company's branch president, Lin Yu. Also her husband, the Violet Tulip Trading Company's guard commander in the county city, Ji Yan. This guard commander is a void stage powerhouse like the county governor. The crowd clamored, as they had recognized the pair that walked over shoulder to shoulder. President Lin, Commander Ji. Sumo lightly smiled to the two of them. Zhu Liang only felt the sky go gloomy when he saw Lin Yu and Ji Yan appear. Oh my god, these two know this violet-clothed youth as well. Could anyone tell him who the heck this violet-clothed youth was? Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto the beautiful woman. He was slightly shocked by her beauty, then his gaze descended onto the middle-aged man beside the beautiful woman, and with just a glance, he was able to discern that this was a half-step void stage powerhouse. Thinking of how Sumo addressed them, Duan Lingtian guessed their identities. President Lin, I was just about to finish dealing with the matter and go thank you. I never expected that you and Commander Ji would come here first. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled to Lin Yu and Ji Yan, and he spoke in a polite and respectful manner. Commander Duan, you're too kind. Being able to help you is Lin Yu's honor, and it is the Violet Tulip Trading Company's honor. As Lin Yu lightly smiled, her snake-like small waist started swaying, revealing infinite allure, causing one to have the impulse to forcefully pin her on the ground and ravage her. Even though his Lin Yu wasn't young, she still retained her attractiveness and was an attractive stunner. Exactly, if Commander Duan needs any help, the entire Violet Tulip Trading Company will surely do all within its power. Ji Yan said as well. Before Duan Lingtian, this middle-aged man whose expression revealed a dignified aura lowered his head as well. Not to mention Duan Lingtian's identity, even that powerhouse by Duan Lingtian's side was sufficient for him to bow. Duan Lingtian smiled as he said, President Lin and Commander Ji are too kind. Lin Qi is my friend, and you two are his seniors, thus you're naturally my seniors. In the future, don't call me Commander Duan, it's fine to directly call me by my name. This time, he was truly grateful to this pair of husband and wife. If it wasn't for them, he wouldn't have found out about the culprit that caused the death of little Fei's grandfather so quickly. Duan Lingtian, Lin Yu, and her husband talked animatedly here, but the content of their chat instead caused a commotion in the surrounding crowd of spectators. Commander Duan, President Lin Yu and Commander Ji Yan are the highest-ranked people in charge of the Violet Tulip Trading Company's branch in Swallow Mountain County, but when they face this young man, they seem to reveal a heartfelt modesty. Even if they meet the county governor, they still would be unlikely to be like this, right? Commander Duan surnamed, and so young, could it be that he's the commander of the embroidered uniform guard, Duan Lingtian? The crowd burst into discussion, and before long, someone had guessed Duan Lingtian's identity correctly. Instantly, the crowd was stirred once again. What? He's Duan Lingtian. I should have thought of this a long time ago. Within our Crimson Sky Kingdom, besides the commander of the embroidered uniform guard, Duan Lingtian, who else would be able to break through to the origin core stage before 20? However, I really never imagined that Commander Duan was actually a grade 8 weapons craftsman as well. To be precise, he's a grade 8 weapons craftsman that is capable of refining a grade 8 spirit weapon that provides a 20% amplification in strength. This time, the Zhu clan really bit off more than they can chew. Look at the expression of the Zhu clan's second elder, it's as unsightly can be. Now infinite regrets have probably arisen within his heart. The crowd clamored, and gaze after gaze that contained a sense of laughing at Zhu Liang's misfortunes descended onto Zhu Liang's figure. Zhu Liang's actions of going back on his words earlier had touched their bottom lines. So, no matter how tragic Zhu Liang's end was, they still wouldn't pity him in the slightest. Zhu Liang had brought all of this onto himself. Duan Lingtian, he's Duan Lingtian. Zhu Liang was scared out of his wits as he looked at the violet-clothed young man that was talking animatedly with Sumo, Lin Yu, and Ji Yan. And infinite regret arose within his heart. If he knew earlier that this violet-clothed young man was the commander of the embroidered uniform guard that was famous throughout Crimson Sky Kingdom, even if he was any braver, he still wouldn't dare go back on his word. He only felt a bellyful of regret as he looked at the pile of corpses beside his feet. It almost felt as if his regret would blast him into pieces. No, so many people of the clan have died for me. I must live, I must live. The desire for survival arose within Zhu Liang's heart. He glanced at Duan Lingtian vigilantly, then his leg jerked as origin energy exploded out. He directly rushed into the crowd, desiring to flee. Want to flee? Duan Lingtian's gaze went cold. HMPH. Coldness appeared within Shang Quan's eyes and his body jerked. He was going to capture Zhu Liang and bring him back. It was impossible for Zhu Liang to flee before him. However, Shang Quan hadn't even rushed into the crowd when he noticed a figure that was like a great rock whistling over, and he had Zhu Liang in his hand. The person that appeared now was a middle-aged man in luxurious clothing and with an imposing appearance. County Governor. Sumo was slightly surprised when he saw the person that had arrived. The Swallow Mountain County's county governor. Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto the middle-aged man in luxurious clothing as well. 238 Chapter 239, A Good Man. Swallow Mountain County's county governor. Pei San's father. Duan Lingtian sized up the middle-aged man in luxurious clothing with interest. Commander Duan. Pei Yuan warmly greeted Duan Lingtian, then he greeted Sumo, Lin Yu, and Ji Yan. In the next moment, his hand descended and directly crippled Zhu Liang's dantian. Pei Yuan. Instantly, Zhu Liang exclaimed out in grief, and his eyes were crimson as he stared angrily at Pei Yuan. Pei Yuan instead paid no attention to Zhu Liang, and he casually threw Zhu Liang beneath Duan Lingtian's feet. Commander Duan, you've come to my Swallow Mountain County's county city for the first time. Consider this untrustworthy scum as my meeting gift to you. Even though he wouldn't have been able to flee even if I didn't make a move. As he finished speaking, Pei Yuan's gaze descended onto Shang Quan, who was beside Duan Lingtian, and he was slightly afraid. Then thank you, County Governor Pei. Duan Lingtian nodded with a smile to Pei Yuan, then raised his leg before fiercely stomping on Zhu Liang's body. Bang! Instantly, Zhu Liang's body was stomped into the ground. Little Fei. Duan Lingtian called Li Fei over and seized back the grade 8 spirit sword in Zhu Liang's hand, then he passed it to Li Fei, who had walked over in large strides. No, don't. After Zhu Liang noticed Li Fei's beautiful eyes emitting killing intent, coldness arose within his heart and he hurriedly shouted out in alarm. Whoosh! Li Fei's gaze was cold as she lifted her hand. Her origin energy bloomed out, then the sword in her hand descended to pierce through Zhu Liang's body, impaling Zhu Liang's body to the ground. Blood splattered all around, dazzling and resplendent. After seeing Zhu Liang breathe his last breath, the hatred on Li Fei's face finally vanished, but when she recalled her grandfather, she felt a burst of sadness and threw herself into Duan Lingtian's embraces. She sobbed without restraint. It's all right, you've taken revenge for grandfather. If grandfather is aware in the afterworld, he will be able to rest in peace. Duan Lingtian lightly patted Li Fei's back and consoled her in a gentle voice. Meanwhile, the people present came to a sudden understanding. So it turned out that Duan Lingtian wasn't taking revenge for his own grandfather and instead was taking revenge for the grandfather of his girlfriend. What a beautiful girl. It's the first time I've seen such an unrivaled beauty in my lifetime. I'm afraid only a talent such as Commander Duan would deserve her. The surrounding crowd of spectators was stirred once again. Traces of admiration arose within their hearts towards Duan Lingtian's actions of getting enraged because of his girlfriend and assisting her in seeking revenge. A good man ought to be like Commander Duan of the Embroidered Uniform Guard. Destroying the Zhou clan in rage for the sake of his girlfriend. Commander Duan, you've come over from a great distance. No matter what, I, this county governor of the Swallow Mountain County, must perform the duties of a host. I hope Commander Duan can do me the honor and come to my county governor's estate. Pei Yuan was an intelligent person, so only after Duan Lingtian finished consoling Li Fei did he invite Duan Lingtian. County Governor Pei, we husband and wife intend to invite Commander Duan to get together as well. Ji Yan smiled lightly. Even though Pei Yuan was the county governor of Swallow Mountain County, he didn't care in the slightest, as Pei Yuan was only a half-step void stage martial artist like him. Su Ma laughed heartily when he saw Pei Yuan and Ji Yan fighting over Duan Lingtian. Regardless of where this kid goes, this old man will follow him to join in the fun and have a meal. The two of you won't mind, right? Vice Guild Master Su, you're kidding. It's an honor, Pei Yuan and Ji Yan said, at almost the exact same time. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian had already put away all the spatial rings of the Zhou clan members, as well as those 2 grade 8 spirit swords. He had noticed as well that Pei Yuan and Ji Yan were looking at him, waiting for him to make a decision. County Governor Pei, I'll remember your favor from today. However, Commander Ji is my senior, and as a junior, I don't dare disobey my senior. So I hope County Governor Pei can forgive me. Duan Lingtian politely refused Pei Yuan. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but have wicked thoughts in his heart. If this Pei Yuan knew that the culprit who crippled the arm of his son, Pei San, was before him, I wonder what sort of expression he would have. Pei Yuan was the county governor of Swallow Mountain County after all, so he wasn't unhappy in the slightest when refused by Duan Lingtian, but a smile still remained on his face. Then Pei Yuan won't force you. However, the door to my county governor's estate is always open for Commander Duan. No matter when Commander Duan arrives, the county governor's estate will always treat Commander Duan as an honored guest. Thank you, County Governor Pei. Duan Lingtian nodded. This Pei Yuan was far superior to Pei San, as expected of a governor of a county. Then Pei Yuan will take his leave. Pei Yuan said to Duan Lingtian before leaving. Arriving like the wind, leaving like the wind, incomparably elegant and unrestrained. Along with the departure of Duan Lingtian's group, the crowd that was gathered at the trade market at the center of the city finally dispersed. Moreover, the incident from today was bound to be on the mouths of the county city residents for a long time from now. Besides that, the Zhou clan had completely gone into a decline. Yu clan estate. Zhou clan. The Yu clan's patriarch, Yu Dian, had a complicated gaze. A great clan whose strength was not one bit inferior to his Yu clan had its foundation completely destroyed by a young man that was not even 20. That Duan Lingtian, perhaps I shouldn't have allowed second brother and grand elder to seek revenge from him. Now second brother and grand elder have died, and even the supreme elder who headed to the imperial city later on has completely vanished. He is surely dead. Yu Dian's face was filled with bitterness. Presently, the people of the county city only knew that Duan Lingtian had destroyed the Zhou clan. But only he knew that not only did Duan Lingtian destroy the Zhou clan, but also his Yu clan. Luckily, the news of the disappearance of a few Yu clan nascent soul martial artists was locked down by him. Otherwise, the Yu clan probably would have ceased to exist long ago. Even if it was able to hold on with its last breath, it would be impossible for the Yu clan to have its current status. Of course, even though he knew that the cause of all this was Duan Lingtian, Yu Dian didn't dare have any thoughts of revenge. What a joke! Not to mention Duan Lingtian's identity, Just with Duan Lingtian's web of contacts, any power taken out at random would be sufficient to annihilate his Yu clan. Duan Lingtian is virtually the bane of my Yu clan, Yu Dian muttered, with a voice that was filled with bitterness. Agarwood Restaurant. As a business of the Violet Tulip Trading Company in the county city, this Agarwood restaurant was many times more luxurious than the Agarwood restaurant in Duan Lingtian's hometown, Fresh Breeze Town. Presently, within the pavilion at the top floor of the Agarwood restaurant, 5 people sat around the table. Only one person stood there, and that was Shang Quan, who stood behind Duan Lingtian. Shang Quan stood there, unmoving like a mountain. However, at this moment, besides Duan Lingtian and Li Fei, Su Mo, Lin Yu, and Ji Yan were all slightly uneasy. Ji Yan glanced at Shang Quan as he said to Duan Lingtian, "Commander Duan, please let this lord sit down." Since an unknown time, a bitter smile had appeared on the corners of his mouth. A dignified void-prying stage powerhouse stood at the side while he sat here. This made him feel very uneasy. Lin Yu and Su Mo looked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian discerned the uneasiness of the three, and he shook his head with a smile. "Shang Quan, sit down." "Yes, young master," Shang Quan respectfully replied, then sat down. Only now did Ji Yan heave a sigh of relief. In next to no time, their food had arrived, and it was all delicious delicacies and some good wine. "Little sister Li Fei, as expected of one of the 3 great beauties of Aurora City, you're really beautiful." Lin Yu looked at Li Fei and lightly smiled. Li Fei's beautiful face was slightly red, and she seemed slightly embarrassed. "President Lin, you're beautiful as well." At this side, the 2 women whispered in discussion. On the other side, Duan Lingtian was instead chatting with Ji Yan and Su Mo. "Kid, your choice that time wasn't wrong. Luckily, you didn't follow me to the Alchemist Guild that year, otherwise, it would virtually be burying your talents. You directed the armies of our Crimson Sky Kingdom to show our power and prestige in the battle at the northwest borders. Even I, this old man, can't help but admire you." After drinking down a few cups of wine, Su Mo was slightly excited. "Exactly, the battle was simply perfect. Sometimes I even think that if I had participated in the battle, how my blood would boil from that." Ji Yan agreed deeply. As the guard commander of the Violet Tulip Trading Company, he was an iron-blooded man in heart. Duan Lingtian only lightly smiled when he heard what they said. Ji Yao looked more highly upon Duan Lingtian when he saw Duan Lingtian's reaction. "Commander Duan, to a certain extent, you can already be considered to be standing at the peak of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. What plans do you have for the future?" Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed, and a trace of yearning flashed within. "Truthfully speaking, I returned to the Swallow Mountain County this time precisely for saying my farewells. After I've dealt with everything here, I won't stay long in the Imperial City and will leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom to head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom." Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Su Mo and Ji Yan weren't surprised at Duan Lingtian's decision, as with Duan Lingtian's strength and natural talent, staying in the Crimson Sky Kingdom would only obstruct his progress. Duan Lingtian didn't belong to the Crimson Sky Kingdom. And the Crimson Sky Kingdom couldn't hold him either. Dragons, it was impossible for them to forever stay within the sea. They would eventually leap out of the sea and soar the 9 heavens. "Have you chose which sector to enter?" Ji Yan asked. As far as he was concerned, since Duan Lingtian was heading to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, Duan Lingtian would surely have to find a sect to enter. After all, only within those sects would Duan Lingtian obtain better improvement. A sect was the stage on which experts fought for supremacy. It was a good jumping board and was the best choice for a genius in the martial Dao like Duan Lingtian. "I haven't." Duan Lingtian shook his head. His knowledge of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom was merely restricted to the Boundless Sect and the Black Fiend Sect. The Boundless Sect was the sect Shang Quan used to be from. The Black Fiend Sect was the sect that annihilated the Boundless Sect. A trace of coldness flashed within the depths of Duan Lingtian's eyes when he recalled the Black Fiend Sect. That year, the scene within Misty Forest was something he wouldn't forget in his lifetime. "Kid, remember that in front of me, you're just an ant. If I desired to kill you, it would be no different than killing an ant. I disdain to kill you." This was what the Black Fiend Sect's Void Stage powerhouse, Sun Rui, said to him. Words that trampled upon his pride. At that time, just a little bit more and he would have died at Sun Rui's hands. He wouldn't forget that suffocating feeling in his lifetime. Disdain. Traces of rage arose within Duan Lingtian's heart. Sun Rui, in the near future, I'll surely make you regret what you said that day. 239 Chapter 240, Xiaolan's Thoughts. Coldness flashed within Duan Lingtian's eyes, yet Ji Yan and Sumo didn't notice. Ji Yan lightly smiled. With Commander Duan's natural talent, once you arrive at the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, even entering one of the top sects will be extremely easy. Exactly. Sumo nodded, and he looked at Duan Lingtian with a serious expression. In the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdoms, sects stand in great numbers. Once you've arrived at the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, make sure to choose between one of the 5 great sects of Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. This will have a great effect on your future achievements. Duan Lingtian nodded. He thought so as well. The best places for cultivation within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom were held within the hands of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial family and the 5 great sects. When he found out about this from Shang Quan, he made a plan in his heart. He planned to choose one of the 5 great sects in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and enter it. After their meal, the sun had set in the west. Duan Lingtian's group of 3 stayed in an inn that Lin Yu arranged for them, and he only left on the next day to return to Aurora City. After spending another 7 days traveling, Duan Lingtian's group of 3 returned to Aurora City. Up and down, coupled with the days spent in the county city, they had spent an entire half-month. Get ready, we're leaving in 2 days. Duan Lingtian set the date of departure. At dawn the next day, Duan Lingtian brought Ke and Li Fei out to the Shao clan to see Luo Qian, the sister of Luo Cheng, Duan Lingtian's friend from the Iron Blood Army's genius camp long ago. Compared to that time, Luo Qian's complexion was much better, and she had completely merged into the Shao clan. Duan Lingtian, you're so impressive now, the commander of the embroidered uniform guard. Xiaolan and Xiaoyun were both with Luo Qian right now. Xiaoyun smiled as she looked at Duan Lingtian and blinked her pretty eyes. Xiaoyun, the daughter of the Shao clan's patriarch. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. Subsequently, his gaze descended onto Xiaolan. Xiao Yu asked me to tell you that everything is fine with him. Xiaolan nodded, and there seemed to be a trace of embarrassment mixed within her beautiful eyes. However, when her gaze inadvertently descended onto the 2 girls by Duan Lingtian's side, her gaze became slightly dim, and a bitterness that was difficult to notice appeared on the corners of her mouth. I came here this time to say my farewells to all of you. After Duan Lingtian told them of his reason for arriving here, they casually chatted for some time, then Duan Lingtian left with Ke and Li Fei. He had naturally noticed Xiaolan's gaze. He never expected that after 2 years had passed, Xiaolan still hadn't let go. Let fate decide. Duan Lingtian sighed in his heart. Xiaolan only withdrew her gaze after seeing Duan Lingtian's group of 3 disappear into the distance, and she faintly sighed. She originally thought that once he left, she could forget him. But who knew that news of him would spread to here one after the other, plucking at her heartstrings and causing her to be immersed within, unable to free herself. But she knew that with his current status and identity, he was bound to slowly grow farther and farther away from her. However, in her heart, there was always a slight unwillingness. Big sister Lan, some things have to be fought for by yourself. Once it passes you by, it will be too late to regret. Luo Qian knew Xiaolan's thoughts and couldn't stop herself from advising her. Yeah, big sister Lan, once you let a man like Duan Lingtian pass you by, he'll be gone forever, Xiaoyun said as well. Xiaolan's beautiful eyes became more and more steadfast when she heard what the 2 said. Duan Lingtian and the 2 girls had only just left Shao clan estate when he noticed Li Fei's hand descend onto his waist, then she fiercely twisted, causing him to be unable to help himself from crying out. Little Fei, you're murdering your husband. HMPH, who asked you to stare at Xiaolan? Li Fei grunted, with a tone that was filled with jealousy. Young master, the way Miss Xiaolan looks at you is very similar to how big sister Fei Fei looks at you. She couldn't have fallen for you as well, right? Ke blinked her beautiful eyes and looked at Duan Lingtian, causing a bitter smile to appear on the corners of his mouth. When did this little girl Ke learn to add oil to the fire? Look, even little sister Ke noticed. Li Fei pouted. Speak, have you fallen for Xiaolan as well? No, absolutely not, Duan Lingtian hurriedly denied. Wouldn't admitting now be looking for trouble? Subsequently, Duan Lingtian and the 2 girls returned to the Li clan estate, then he called Li Zan, Lin Zhou, and Lin Qi to have a meal together as a form of farewell. During the feast, he specially introduced Li Zan to Lin Zhou and Lin Qi. Lin Zhou took up his wine cup and said to Duan Lingtian, Duan Lingtian, after you leave this time, I wonder when we can gather again. Today, we won't leave until we're drunk. Exactly, come, cheers, Lin Qi said as well. During the course of the meal, Li Zan had become acquainted with Lin Zhou and Lin Qi. Duan Lingtian let out a long breath of relief. When they returned to the Li clan estate, Li Zan said sincerely, Boss, thank you. What are you thanking me for? Duan Lingtian asked, with a smile. Could it be that this fatty noticed something? Li Zan laughed slyly. Boss, I know you specially introduced Lin Zhou and Lin Qi to me. You don't have to act. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. He never thought that this fatty would have noticed. The next day, Duan Lingtian's family and Shang Quan had just left the Li clan estate when they saw the three girls that were waiting at the gate. Xiao Lan, Xiao Yun, and Luo Qian. What are all of you? Duan Lingtian noticed that Xiao Lan held a travel bag in her hand, and a bad premonition arose within his heart. As expected, Li Fei's burning gaze seemed as if it could light Duan Lingtian ablaze. Duan Lingtian looked at Xiao Lan and asked curiously, Xiao Lan, what are you doing here? Duan Lingtian, I want to visit my brother in the imperial city. Can you bring me along? As Xiao Lan spoke, her extremely beautiful face blushed slightly, making her look enchanting and moving, and causing one to have the urge to press their lips on her and fiercely kiss her. Li Ru spurred her horse to stop nearby, and the corners of her mouth curled into a smile. It looked like the charm of her son was rather huge. In terms of appearance, this girl was not inferior to her two future daughters-in-law in the slightest. If it was possible, she didn't mind having one more daughter-in-law that was so beautiful. Women were against their own husbands having many women, but when it came to their own sons, they instead earnestly wished for them to fully enjoy having many wives. At that time, she could carry her grandsons and granddaughters until her hands got weak. Duan Lingtian was slightly hesitant. Little Fei's gaze was too fierce. In the end, it was Li Ru who helped Duan Lingtian out of the predicament. She looked at Xiao Lan and lightly smiled. You're Xiao Lan, right? Li Ru had heard of the three great beauties of that were renowned throughout Aurora City. Xiao Lan's gaze descended onto Li Ru's figure, and she lightly nodded. She was slightly surprised in her heart. This is Duan Lingtian's mother. She looks so young. Seeing Xiao Lan slightly hesitant and seeming to not know how to address her, Li Ru lightly smiled. You can follow Kei and Fei, and call me Aunt Ru. Aunt Ru. Xiao Lan lightly nodded, and her beautiful face was red to the point that it looked like blood would drip out of it. Your brother is a good friend of Tian's. Since you want to go see your brother, then follow us. Under Li Ru's instruction, Xiao Lan and Li Ru rode the same Fergana horse. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, Li Fei spurred her horse to Duan Lingtian's side and glanced at him with a spurious smile on her face. Scoundrel, you're extremely happy now, right? Yes, Duan Lingtian subconsciously answered. When he noticed Li Fei's spurious smile, he hurriedly shook his head. No, no. Their group once again started their journey. From Aurora City to the Imperial City, they spent another 2 months. After entering the Imperial City inner city, Duan Lingtian said to Xiao Lan, follow us home first. I'll go look for your brother in a while and ask him to come get you. Xiao Lan nodded, and her pair of beautiful and moving eyes revealed a trace of dejection. Li Ru noticed Xiao Lan's dejected gaze and lightly smiled as she said, Lan, come often and visit Aunt Ru. Yes, Aunt Ru. Xiao Lan's gaze lit up once again. After returning to his courtyard house, Duan Lingtian went to Paladin Academy and found Xiao Yu. After he heard that his sister had come to the Imperial City, Xiao Yu couldn't help but be stupefied. Why has she come? Duan Lingtian shrugged. She said she wanted to visit you. Xiao Yu laughed bitterly. Find him. He didn't believe it. However, since his sister had come, it naturally wasn't good for him to trouble Duan Lingtian, so he and Xiao Xuan followed Duan Lingtian to arrive at Duan Lingtian's house. It was the first time that both Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan came to Duan Lingtian's house. Brother. A trace of a smile that could charm all living beings appeared on Xiao Lan's face when she saw Xiao Yu. Xiao Xuan, who followed beside Xiao Yu, was completely dumbstruck. This is Xiao Yu's little sister. As expected, she's a beauty of the same level as Princess Bai Yao. In next to no time, when Xiao Xuan saw Kei and Li Fei, who had walked out from within the house, he was dumbstruck once more. When did beauties become so plenty? In terms of appearance, the two girls that walked out right now weren't inferior to Xiao Yu's little sister and Princess Bai Yao in the slightest. Xiao Xuan suddenly felt that he had probably used all his chances of seeing beauties in this lifetime. When he saw the two girls that had just come out hold Duan Lingtian's arms from left and right, he knew that they were Duan Lingtian's women, and for a moment, only a sheen of jealousy and envy remained within his eyes. As the saying goes, a friend's wife is out of bounds, so he hurriedly withdrew his gaze and once again moved it onto Xiao Lan. I won't look at my friend's women, but looking at Xiao Yu's little sister should be fine, right? In next to no time, he was dumbstruck again. He noticed that after Xiao Lan greeted Xiao Yu, her gaze never left Duan Lingtian's figure, seeming to have been rooted on Duan Lingtian's body. He could only look at Duan Lingtian as well. Duan Lingtian's fortune in romance caused Xiao Xuan to feel admiration toward him. Xiao Xuan. Duan Lingtian didn't know of Xiao Xuan's current thoughts. He withdrew a brush and paper, then he wrote down a pile of materials. Ask your Xiao clan's patriarch to help me gather these materials. In a month, pass these materials to me, and at that time I'll pay you. 1 month from now was also the time Duan Lingtian intended to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom and head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. He gave himself a month to use to gather various materials for weapons refinement, pill refinement, and inscribing. No problem. Xiao Xuan received the piece of paper from Duan Lingtian and nodded. With Duan Lingtian's current identity and status, their Xiao clan's patriarch wouldn't refuse Duan Lingtian's request.